Man, that took a while. A little circle going and going and going. I don't know if my internet or what. I guess we're live. Took a little bit. It's still late though. Yeah, we missed y'all for a couple of episodes. Had last Wednesday off, then Saturday took off so Roger could post his, and now we're back to another Saturday. Before we get started, I want to. There's YouTube giving notifications. They're good. You won't get one from Facebook. It's crazy. But I want to put our prayers out for Larry Parker, who, as many of you know, lost his wife this past week. And keep him in your prayers. And also want to keep Tom Crum and Ginger in her prayers. She's got a kidney infection real bad. Had to go to the hospital, and blood pressure was real low. And so they're going to keep her for a little bit and get her all better, hopefully. So let's keep him in our prayers as well. What's going on, Anthony? What's up, Clint? So Clint and I tonight, we got deciding that after we handle the questions, we're going to talk a little bit about different steel types and you know what their fundamental purposes are, and maybe pop up a few pictures. I didn't have time to get a lot of pictures. I got one, maybe two. There's not a lot of different ones, but maybe while we're talking, I can pull up a few more um, pictures to in illustrations show. But first and foremost, before I forget, God bless you, keep on to me. Let me share the link. I remember there's been a couple few times I'm like 30 minutes into the episode, I'm like, wait a minute, I forgot to share the damn link. Uh, I guess that's part of it. I hate busy work like this, but I guess we gotta do it to get the word out. Because this not only helps the people that are in here asking questions, the people that watch, and there's quite a few that watch it, in their own time. Not as many watch it live here as there's a lot that watch it. Um, Wait a minute, God damn it! And that'll count against one of my damn posts. Posted the wrong daggone thing. Shit. Delete. So that'll be one less post I get to post today. How in the hell that happened anyway? All right. Well, that's a little bit. Maybe that'll be a little better. Well, I should have known it looked different. Oh well. Lord have mercy. I tell you, Facebook gets on my nerves sometimes. But most of the steels that we deal with is pretty much just basically pot steels and pot retort combos. But we'll talk about all that jazz after we take care of the questions. I like to field the questions first, so maybe we can work some into some of the answers. Depending on what people are asking. So let me get these shared. I hate this silent time. Let me see. Okay, that's good. Let's see here. I have to check. Yeah, just a second. Let's see. Yeah, let's see. I'm not sure if I'm getting approval on the post in that group, so don't want to waste a post there if you're not. If they're not getting posted. So I hate this quiet time. I'm usually not quiet in there. That's the only time you hear any quietness on my podcast when I'm doing this. That's why I hate having to do this. Hang on a minute. All right, let me check one more thing here. Okay, good. All right, close those. All right, finally. What's going on, Curtis? Yep. Yeah, there's quite a few different steels. Let's see. It's got pot steels, reflux steels, pot and pot thumper. Yeah, one of the things that thumper, the official term, I guess, is retort, which is something you don't hear very often. Most, infusers and thumpers, but it's a sort of a retort because it's kind of a second distillation, additional distillation. So it's something we're going to talk about as well. Reflux, liquid management, vapor management. Yep. Vapor velocity and all that jazz, cooling management. So there's a lot of different types of steels. There's just a traditional pot steel. Then you got, pot reflux or pot retort. And then you got hybrid steels that have basically kind of well, yes, Jim, we're taking questions. I was getting ready to start on that, and I forgot. Wait a minute, we're gonna do questions first. Got your plants clipped and hanging on tomato grates. Awesome. That's happy time, man. Yes, Jim, we are, brother. Lay it on us. I'm glad you found us too, brother. Hopefully we can help you. Ask any questions you got. What's going on, Jonathan? Hey, William, how's it going, brother? Hey, Dave, I'm doing good. Doing good tonight. Jonathan B. Haven't got anything yet, so that's all right. Apples, there are a lot of apples on sale right now, so it's a good time to start doing a little apple brandy and little apple pie. I'm getting ready to work on some apple myself this coming week. I've got a few things I got to get done first. Man, time is getting past me. I've got so many things. I got to check something else here that's real important on my insurance. I forgot about. Let me check. I got to either do that tonight or tomorrow, or oh boy, won't have insurance. Okay, 24th. Okay, good. I got time. Sure. All right. What's going on, Kenny? Good to see you, brother. You and Toby hung over after last night. Y'all had a good time. Hell yeah, man. Not a lot of people happy these days. It's good to see some people happy. I guess some people look for things to be pissed off about. I try to find things to be happy about because I got plenty to be pissed off about. That's awesome, Dave. Have you ever tried home distilling or getting some of his recipes and trying it out? Hell, you can do it on your stovetop these days, man. If you're careful and get a good still, you can. It's pretty easy to do. But there's a few safety things you need to learn and go on. And once you get past those, it's a pretty enjoyable hobby. And it'd be a good occupation too. I'd have to do it legal though. No way I could bootleg and have to deal with all that. There just ain't enough money in it for the risk, Not enough reward. Yeah, with all the booze out there these days, you can't make any money making liquor and selling it. All the marijuana legal everywhere. You can't grow it and sell it, make any money. And those days are gone. But there's a few other hobbies. You can make your wine and beer. I guess they'll let you do that legally and sell that. And a lot of people do. There's a lot of winemakers and beer makers out there that do hobby and sell. And in some states, they allow you to, you can advertise it and mail it. You can make your own wine, advertise it, and mail it. 3/4 of a quart last night, no headache. I know that feeling, man. I tell you though, last times I've been really hammered was at some of these festivals. And if you've been to any of them, you'll know a lot of the stuff that they pass around is low proof, high sugar, which makes for a delicious drink. I mean, I'm not saying they're not good. And that's probably why I get so damn hungover, is because I continue to drink them because they do taste good. But man, all that sugar and having to drink so much to get that buzz, oh God. It makes one of the worst hangovers you'll ever have. Maggie Valley owns my worst hangover I believe I've had in probably 30 years since I was a young boy. Probably over 30 years. Oh man, it was bad. I drank over a quart that night though. I drank a quart, almost a quart of Mark Morgan's Coffee Shine. Drank a half quart of some of the I think it was blackberry or huckleberry and some other stuff that we made while we was there. And shoot, I don't know how much, earlier that day I drank. That was just that evening. And we partied till they made me leave. They like, oh man, we gotta sleep. It was like 5 in the morning. I was still, after drinking that damn coffee shine, man, I was ready to go. I was ready to drink another quart, man. Man, I was hungover for 3 days. I was hurting, man, all the way home. Man, that drive, I was hurting all the way home. Man, it's bad. That's one thing, I never throw up. Sometimes it's good to get that stuff out when you get that messed up, drink so much. But Maggie, it's not this past year. I stayed a little more sober this past year, as year before last. And I started the first day and I was drunk the whole time I was there. I didn't, you party till 3 or 4, and Wes up late every night and party with him and everybody else that could hang, and 4 in the morning, go to bed, wake up 10, 11 next morning, drunk, and just hair of the dog, and drink some more. And God, it's bad. So is you drinking? All right, Jim. I'm ready for you, brother. Ask away. I'm sorry I had to take time to share those links. I hope you didn't leave while I was sharing them links. For those that don't know, while I'm sharing links, I can't see this page because I've got, it's I'm seeing different tabs, on my computer, so I have to go to different tabs to share it, so I can't see it. So, Jim, I wasn't ignoring you, brother. I just couldn't see any of the chat until I get back. So when I'm real quiet like that, I'm just I'm just back. Yeah, man. Man, I was bad off. Gold Slugger. I've drank some of that in the day. Yeah, I drank some of that Gold Slugger. There's a lot of stuff out there that ain't so good. Lord, wind advisory. Are we supposed to get storms? Going windy, I guess. Holy moly. Tired, man. I put off my taxes and because of the flood, right during the time we were going to file them. So when all that flood happened everywhere, and my basement was a victim too. So I had to shut everything down and vacuum water up here in this basement for 26 hours straight. Had to go get another wet and dry vac because we couldn't keep up with it with just one. And me and Ann, she took off work the next day, and we vacuumed for 26 hours straight. And finally, the rain stopped, and we were able to get ahead of it. But if we hadn't, it'd probably have had probably 6, 8 inches at least in this basement, maybe more, probably more. Definitely, probably more, probably closer to a foot. But we minimized it to a couple inches. That was about the worst it got. But that was enough to ruin the floor and a lot of the furniture and shit that was touching on the floor. I thought I got most everything up. Had some artwork on the floor. And DVDs, they're all right, but VCR tapes and stuff, mold stuff in the boxes. And oh, yeah, I tell you, I don't know. I hate to it, brother, but I hope you stay here. We don't do the drum on here. But yeah, it's I don't know. That fella can't probably shouldn't just not let him into the podcast and just keep going and keep things positive and fun. And But I don't know. Try to give people a voice and let them talk about, saying he's sobered up and changing. So I hope so. Anyway, don't want to go there tonight. Yeah, I had when I first moved in here, I got some flooding, but I had an elbow that was off on my gutter, and it on my downspout, and it poured and poured and poured, um, and it was really bad, and it soaked this basement bad. I mean, it got pretty deep, and I didn't have the pumps and stuff then to get rid of it. Yeah, we don't do the drama on here. We eliminate that shit. We're just all about Q&A and talking about the industry and try to keep it pretty much on topic here. Shit show. They pretty much just let it's a shit show. That's why they named it that. So it's some people enjoy watching that. And I tell you what, Evan. Sadly enough, um, on those episodes when we have drama and stuff, and a lot of people fussing and arguing back and forth, we get more viewers watching that than most any other time for the shit show. So yeah, explain that. Nah, corn's pretty easy to get, Dave. Well, I'm glad, brother. But anyway, so I fixed the gutter and put me some, French drain or corrugated pipe out into the yard. Actually, I did solid PVC out into the yard and got it away. And I've never had any troubles in all the rains that we've had. And so we figured it's leaked, the issue is leaked. Then we had a period of rain for like 3 or 4 days, then it quit for a day. And we thought it was good. Then it poured. And I guess just the ground was so saturated and there's cracks in the wall, I guess. And that just water didn't have anywhere else to go. And I don't have a sump pump down here. So, yeah, we had to put a pump in the basement where it comes in over here in the corner. But it's it's only done it twice in 13 years. I guess 10 years in between. I guess we was in here 3 years, then it flooded, and then again 10 years later. So, but I'm gonna go in with I'm gonna get all the carpet out of here and the parquet wood floor, and I'm just gonna put tile down, and that way we can just vacuum the shit up off the tile, and everything that goes on the floor is gonna have a brick under each leg. Just get up 3 inches, 3.5 inches off the ground, so I don't have to worry so much. But yeah, we try to stay on topic here, and we do on most the podcasts that we have. We stay on topic, but the shit show, it's the time for people to let it fly. And if you don't want to watch that, I don't blame you. But it's a lot of people enjoy it. And a lot of people like getting in there and voicing their disapproval about things and politics and everything else. I don't know. I have a lot to say about politics, but I know not everybody follows the same, beliefs, and I'm all for that. I'm all for everybody having whatever belief they want and doing their life however they want. So sometimes it's best not talk about religion and politics and try to just talk about other things. But yeah, it's shouldn't be too hard to find you some corn. Tractor Supply. You know, I mean, what's the other one? Tractor Supply and any of your feed stores, have it. Bucky's, if you got Bucky's close by, they got it cheap. Um, what's the other store like Tractor Supply? I can't think of it. It's another. They got one in Georgetown. But I can't think of the name of it. Well, in East Kentucky, it floods all the time, so we get them all the time. What is that other one? Tractor Supply and don't make me go. Real King. Thank you, Hillbilly. Somebody's listening. Real King. I couldn't think of it. I don't go to them as often. I've been to them a couple times and they got good corn too, both of them. And don't bother with the deer corn. Just get the regular shell corn, whole kernel corn. It's all yellow dent, good corn. People say, "Oh, that's yeah." People say, "Oh, that's animal grade." It's yellow dent. Ain't no animal grade. Farmers don't say, "Oh, I'm gonna plant some animal grade yellow dent #2." It's all the same. It's just some of it's cleaner than others. And I'd say probably some of the better quality. We'll probably go to making biscuits or cornmeal for chips and tortillas, chips, and that kind of thing. Cornmeal in the bag and cornbread and all that. So a lot of that is yellow dent. That's yellow dent corn. I guess some of them do a white corn now, but yeah, it's all the same. It's some of it's a little cleaner than others. They say the deer corn is shit that falls in the floor that gets shoveled in a dustpan and thrown in another bin. I don't know. There's probably some places do that, and um, some of the sweet feed gets done like that. I've heard too. But just regular shelled corn, I like it better than cracked corn because you know I'm noticing the cracked corn I get a lot of cob. A little bit of cob mixed in there, which isn't a bad thing. It adds a little bit of methanol to the mash. It'll break down the cellulose and the cob will break down, and you get some extra methanol and heads out of it. But uh, most of the shelled corn, just the whole kernel corn and producer pride, I guess they got it at Tractor Supply. It's good. Yeah, it works out real well. Just make sure it's fairly fresh, and if you get the whole kernel versus the cracked corn, it stays fresher longer too. That husk keeps it all sealed up like a Tupperware. It keeps it fresh, and it'll stay fresh a lot longer. Whereas the cracked corn, it may be stale when you buy it. Maybe it's sitting there so long. So try to go to a store around here. We're fairly much in the country, so it sells pretty quickly, especially this time of year. Everybody's feeding their deer, bringing the deer in with it. So, you get a pretty good turnover and it stays pretty fresh. But yeah, you don't have to, sobriety's fine. I like mixing mine. When I was younger, I had trouble stopping, but now that I gotten older, I don't have so much trouble stopping anymore. Used to it stop to saw the bottom of the bottle. Now I can drink a few. And once I start feeling it, if I want to get drunk, I can drink a few more. If I don't want to get too hammered, I can just stop. I wasn't able to do that when I was younger. Is it? Yeah, get that well water. In your thumper, I wouldn't put water. I'd put either you could. A lot of people will put some mash in there and let it distill out. I used to do a little bit of that, but mostly what I put in there was tails from the previous run. But if it's your first run, a long time you won't have none. But you can infuse some flavors if you want to put some pureed fruit in there. You can puree up some fruit. If you're doing corn, I'll tell you one of the best damn secrets in the world is get you some cream corn and puree the shit out of it, and put that in your thumper, and it'll help carry that corn flavor over real well. It'll make your corn liquor taste a lot better. I tell you, it's one of the secrets to it too. So don't share that with anybody. You got that here. So. Yeah, yeah. Facebook Marketplace. I found my wheat guy on Facebook Marketplace, and I go every year. And I'm glad you mentioned that. I need to get up with him. It's about that time. But every year, he's got some red winter wheat he sells pretty cheap. He puts it on Facebook Marketplace, and that's how I met him. And man, they sell all kinds of stuff. They got pigs, they've got cattle, they've got wheat, they've got about everything. But they sell meat and wheat and corn. They sell everything. Well, except malted barley or barley, period. Yeah, the deer corn and the sweet feed, stay away from those. A lot of times deer corn, they'll put they'll spray it too. Like Clint's talking about, they spray it. I think Sean Peterman was telling me about that, and Roy Crothers. They both worked in a mill, so they know about this stuff. They spray it with a propionic acid. I was having to think what's the name of that. It's a propionic acid that they spray it with, and it helps preserve it and keep it nice and shiny and pretty. But it's not so good, not so good probably in your mash. I don't know how your yeast reacts to it. I mean, I've never thought about it, but they say if you can, to kind of wash your corn kernels, rinse them good and wash them, and kind of, I guess you might want to scrub them a little bit, and stir them up and clean them up a little bit, and then before you let them dry, and then grind them up to get that propionic acid off. So that was something that I didn't know. But yeah, the producer pride's good. Well, yeah, I was also going to add, a lot of times in the sweet feed and in the deer corn, they'll add salt to bring them in, minerals and other things to help, build your corn, build the horns, on your deer and stuff, and give them certain nutrients. And I guess some people use this stuff year round to build up their horns and bellies and fatten them up. But yeah, Tractor Supply is pretty good. Bucky's, I heard, sells it pretty cheap, but somebody said they kept it outside. I don't know if they do. It might be malted. 1,500 pounds. You're ready to rock, ain't you, brother? $8 a bushel. That's a damn good deal, man. That's a good deal. See, that's what happens when you know a farmer. You can pay $8 at Bucky's for a 50-pound bag, or get it fresh from a farmer. That at Bucky's, I don't know, it is $8 or $9, but they keep it outside. I think Tractor Supply is probably 12, maybe $12. I don't know. I haven't priced it in a while. I need to go get some though. Yeah, the whole kernel will definitely stay fresh for longer. It's got that husk. No, I don't go by proof. You gotta, the proof is pretty much a product of the steel. So some steels won't even put out 170 when you're in the heads, hearts, and tails. It doesn't come out at 170 at all. So it will depend on the steel. So you're going to have to go by the smell and the taste and the feel. But you can also, just a general guide. Now this isn't set in stone. Different distillates will have different amounts of heads and fours, but about 50 milliliters per gallon. So I guess in a 10-gallon run, you're looking at 500 milliliters, which is probably a big quart almost. And that should get you well past it. But it's better to, just jar it up just as it comes out, put it in a jar and label it 1, 2, 3, 4 as it comes out. And then when you got them all laid out, you can pretty much separate the first third here, the second third in the middle, and the last third here, and then start right where the tails and the hearts, are combined, and you can do those pretty easily. Make that cut pretty easily in judging those 2/3. Where you separate them. Try the tail side, and that may probably will go into the hearts, and you'll have a little less than a third, and then do the same over on the heads. Sample those jars. Let me pull up the example here, and it'll give you a little bit idea of what I'm talking about. Now don't look at the temperatures here because these temps are for different types of steels and stuff. And most of my second heads and all that 185 to 90. Most steels won't even have alcohol coming off at 185 to 90. It's going to have to be 100 over 190 if it's 10-12% alcohol, and unless you got a bunch of tails and they're bringing the proof up, yeah, it's not going to do anything. So eliminate. I keep saying I'm going to eliminate these temperatures because it bothers me they're on there like that, because you can't. Certain steels you can dial in like that, but they're fractional distillation. They can't do. But anyway, this is what I was talking about, like the thirds. You see where it says heads, there's about a third there, heart's a third, and tail's a third. But generally, it's like closer to 35 or 40% in the middle, and then the remainder made up on each end, 35 on each end, I guess, 30 on 30 and 40. That makes 100. 30%, 40%, 30% is a general guide that you can kind of go by as well. But when you look at this chart and you see jars 6 and 7, I mean, there's a lot of shiners, especially if you're going to age it in some oak. You can pull 6 and 7 and just dump it right in with the rest of the heart. It's the same with 15, 16, because those flavors get lost in the rest of that. And as it ages over time, a lot of those heads will create some esters. They're basically esters. It'll esterify into some interesting flavors over time. But if you're just shooting for just plain white dog and you don't want anything else in there, you're just going to want to keep jars 8 through 14, maybe 15, and cut those out, because that's going to have your sweetest liquor in there. Now you can take jars 16 through 18, 19, I guess, and throw those in a tails bucket. And you can do the same thing with jar 6, 7. You can throw that in your tail bucket too, because there's really not a lot of headsy stuff in there. And by the time you distill it a second time, that's going to be gone. But as for me, now everybody does it different. And I'm not telling you this is the only way to do it or the way to do it. It's just how I do it. But I get rid of jars 1, 2, 3, and 4, and a lot of times 5, and I'm not going to add that back into another distillate and all those ethyl acetates, acetaldehydes and acetones and all that back into the propanols and all that. Isomers. No, I'm not going to add all that back into it. So I usually use that for cleaners, grass killers, metal cleaners, good for cleaning up countertops, stove tops, glasses. I use it to clean my glasses, a lot of good things, but I never put it back in there. I don't there's just not enough alcohol in there to try to get at with that without adding all those heads and stuff. I don't. But I'll add a lot of those tails there into the thumper. But your heads, you're just going to have to learn to taste it. Now, what you try to do is, once you got all your jars, let's just say you got half pints, right? And you got it all out there. You got 20 half pints, and that's about all you got. And this is just hypothetical. You can gauge it in larger jars, but starting out, it's best to do it in smaller jars, little pint jars or half pint jars. Especially use your half pints when you get around 6, 7, 8. That way it's better for you to make that cut, easy for you to make that cut, and you don't waste as much. But when you do, start sampling it at jar 16, 17, just see how it tastes. And a lot of times 17 won't taste bad and 16 won't taste bad. And you're like, well, that's not so bad. By the time I add that to all them other jars in the middle, that little bit of, mustiness will go away. And it kind of gets to where a lot of people describe it as wet cardboard, wet dog, musty basement taste. It's just got an off musty taste, when you start getting into those oils. But around 15, 16, it's not so bad, especially if you're going to age it. You definitely want to keep those if you're aging it. But yeah, those can go back into your thumper. But start sampling there and then start drinking back. Just a little shot out of each, half shot, just switch it around your mouth, taste it. And then by the time you go backwards, when you start getting to 8 and 7, especially 7 and 6, you'll start noticing an odd flavor. You'll start tasting that ethanol, and that acetone and that those ethyl acetates, and you'll be like, yeah, that's just not for me. That's getting a little headsy, especially when you get to jar 5. 6, 7, if you got a real tuned palate, you'll taste it, and you probably like I say, if you're going to age it, those are fine. But if it's just going to be white dog or something, yeah. But if you make a lot of vodka, I guess you could keep some of those earlier jars. And if you got a still that's got multiple bubble plates, like 8 bubble plates and, 6-foot column or something, and you can pretty much, eliminate a lot of those, and get a neutral alcohol, it's probably okay. But I don't do the vodkas that much, and when I do, it's just a straight run and a second run, and I'm done. But I just throw those away. But yeah, just going back and tasting them. When you get to jar 6, 7, and definitely 5, you'll start noticing some bad flavors, and that's when just to rest those jars and everything before it. Start use it for charcoal, lighter fluid. I don't know. You probably put it in some Zippos if it's high enough proof. Um, yeah, we should have an episode basically on shit you can do with heads, man. There's a lot of uses for it. It's handy. I mean, distilling just for that. In the old days, having something to clean and having that lighter fluid and having stuff to disinfect with. It came in handy. I'd say they probably used it more then than they do now. Yep. Yeah, we was talking about that last week or a couple weeks ago. Yeah, when you get just sparge all your floaties off. But I guess if you're putting in your thumper, it's not going to score it. So, but I sparge all the powder and small stuff off, and just any solid grain kernels or anything like that. You can put that in the thumper and kind of rinse all the yeast and the flocculants and all that off there. But yeah, but cream corn works good. Flake maize, well, that's nice. Yeah, I like weeded. Now, Hillbilly, you ever throw any oats in there with it? I always try to throw a few handfuls of oats in there. I mean, I don't really count them as much as as an extra grain, because it's not really a high percentage or anything. Usually less than 5%. But I'll throw a few handfuls of oats in there to soften it up and give it a good mouthfeel. It really helps. I like it. I like having a little bit of oats in there with it. Temp, that's fine. Yeah, but no, you let me show you another chart here. And I can explain it a little better here. This is probably the best chart to look at as far as what you can do. Let me get this out of here so you can see what we're doing. Now, at the bottom here of this chart, you'll see 0, 10, 20, 40, 60, 80, and 100. That's percentage. So you have to double it to get proof, right? So, and this correlates with what I was talking about just a little bit earlier. With those temperatures on that chart, it's horrible. Because if you look on that chart at 185 degrees, which is what it said in it, 185 to 90 degrees. Yeah, let me have this back. 185, 90, you'll have to have 40 proof alcohol before you're getting anything come off at 190. So that's bullshit. Between 180 and 185, you'd have to have 60, 40 to 60 proof. I don't know anybody that gets a mash that good. Now, if you're adding tails to it, you might get that. If you have a lot of tails to add to it, you might get that, and you probably get some off at those temperatures. But yeah, most your regular mashes, that 10's 20%. So most of your mashes don't exceed that because your yeast denatures around 18 to 20 proof, you know. And so that's about 195, 197. So most of your mashes, 20 proof, 20, 10%, to 18%. So 190, 192 to 195 ish, is when you're going to really start noticing stuff happening. People say, oh, you can just burn off the heads at 175. No, nothing happens at 175. You can keep that pot temp at 175 and it won't do anything. Now, it will do some things at the very bottom because that's right next to the heat. So everything's 175 at the top for your measuring temperature, but there at the bottom where it's right next to that, that fire from your propane, where it's touching the bottom of the steel, that bottom inch, now that's going to be in the 190s when the top's still in the 170s. So you will get some bubbling action going on low, if it's not agitated. A lot of people agitate to help, avoid some of that, but and to keep the bottom stirred up. But so you will see a little bit in the bottom starting to go, but that's not going to take care of all the heads and the whole thing. You can't just burn your heads off, like that, because it's all the once you get, if you notice, it doesn't cross the line here where water boils at 210, right? And ethanol boils at 173.1. So you can see on this chart, 173.1 over there to 100, it doesn't quite meet 100. That's the reason being because it's an azeotrope. And once you mix water and alcohol together, the boiling points of both change. And especially, and there's other things in there too that are also azeotropic. So it even affects it even more. So if it wasn't, yeah, you could just put that, still to 175 degrees and you could, boil off all your, ethanol and you'd be good to go, right? You just have water left. It'd be awesome, but that's not how it works, and at 146 and change, you could burn the fours off, cook the fours off of it. But and methanol, but I think methanol is 146 change. Let me Google that. I can't remember. I think it's 148.5. I say 146 and changes, 148.5. So, you can't just put it at 150 or 60 and just cook off all the four shots. It doesn't work like that because it's an azeotrope. Methanol is too. So it changes the boiling point. That's what this shows. The more water content, the higher the boiling point is going to be. The lower the water content, the lower the boiling point becomes. And for that reason, we can't just fractionally distill it in a pot still, or we'd be able to do that. So that answers some questions for people. Even the Discovery Channel, I'm not talking about moonshiners. I'm talking about some of the specials they've had on there and other TV shows and even some of the AI. I used to think that, yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there. Appreciate it, brother. Hey, anytime you got questions, man, bring them on. We'll find it. If we don't know the answer, we'll find it. Chances are we're going to know it. Clint and me both, we're going to know the answers. And if we don't, we'll find it. We'll find you the right answer. And there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of groups, and not just Facebook groups, but a lot of distiller.org, Reddit. I've seen more bullshit in Reddit about than anybody, so I always pick Reddit to pick on. But there's a lot of them out there that give a lot of false information out, and so we try to. I use quart jars, yeah. Now that I know about where I can pretty much judge it. I know by the volume and what I started at and how much alcohol I've got in there. I can pretty much tell, and I've gotten good at smelling. Phil Billy, talks about he gets it in his hands. I just rub it in my fingers, but it makes it what when you see people rubbing it in the fingers or rubbing it in the hands, they're trying to get that alcohol spread out on their hands and get it evaporating. And then you can smell it this way or smell like that, and you can feel by the smell and the burn and the tearing up if you know how much heads and methanol and stuff you got in there, and you'll get used to it. You won't have to count jars or do 50 milliliters per gallon and all that, and that's per gallon of mash. So if you have a 10-gallon mash, 500 milliliters, and you should be good. And 500 milliliters, I don't know all my little conversions. So 500 milliliters, I think it's like 2 cups. Uh, well, that's about a third of a gallon. Let's go to cups. Yeah, 2 cups. That's right. So 500 milliliters is 2 cups. If you have measuring cups in your house, 2 cups, that's 500 milliliters. So for a 10-gallon mash, which is a pretty standard, 2 cups, and you should be pretty close. Some of your brandies and stuff, you're going to maybe still have some residual heads in there because they generally carry more heads. Like I was talking about earlier, if you have a lot of cob in your corn, you might still be getting a little touch of heads, because when you break down some of that cellulose in the cob, a lot of that cellulose it's like a wood alcohol. That's how you make wood alcohol, and that's methanol is by breaking down cellulose. So what's going on, Kimbo? Yeah, yeah. Start in the middle, work your way to the tails, and once you're done with that, go back to the middle and work your way to the heads. Because once you get that acetone and ethanol and methyl acetates on your tongue, um, everything tastes that way, man. It's hard to cleanse your palate, and no matter how much water you swish, it don't come off easy, and it takes a while. So that's why everybody starts at the tails end and works backwards. Because once you get that shit on your tongue, man, even hearts start tasting like it, and it'll mess you up. Yeah, yeah, you can use it for wind, and you can get some food coloring. It's a good idea. When you got heads like that and you put it in a jar, make sure you put something on there that do not drink, or I always take some food coloring, green or blue, and mix with it. And that way, I don't want to drink that. It's uh, and it looks like you can put it in, your cleaner bottles, with Windex, and make it look just like Windex. But man, when you start spraying it, you definitely know it ain't no Windex. Yeah, I see. Now, everybody, do you use liquid amylase? That liquid high temp? If not, Clint's saying you might want to up your 20% malt. Unless some of that red wheat's malted, then it'd be damn good to go. Yeah, I use dextrose. If I don't get a good conversion, I'll use dextrose. What's going on, Frank? Good to see you, brother. No, no, it doesn't. Yeah, red food coloring. I do the blue, and I'll put it in I'll put it in a Windex jar, for a sprayer. That way, I like having reusing those sprayers instead of having to just go to the store and buy sprayers for it. Just get you some, and then from then on, you got you, and you don't have to hide it. But I guess it'd be a good place to hide your moonshine too, if you want to clean it out real good. Put a few drops of blue food coloring in it. Nobody ever know. It won't hurt you drinking food coloring. The law comes in, looks over everything. Man, he's got a lot of Windex. Yeah, boy, I got a lot of windows. Yep, I clean windows on the weekends for a little extra money. Not a bad idea. But yeah, I mean, it's illegal, but you know, you can also put it in vodka jars and you know, old corn liquor jars, legal jars. Store it that way. But I'd add an extra charge if they catch you doing it. Yeah, windshield fluid. Yeah, yeah. Of course, I don't know. Those rubber wiper blades, it might do a number on those. I don't know. Oh, did they come in? I'm glad, man. I was worried. Can you believe the detail on those rifles on the militia part, man? Just the way they raise it up, you know, for the detail and stuff. I mean, it just not too. It's like 3 dimensional, isn't it? It's raised up, and it it is. It's some of the best work I've seen. It was well worth what I paid. You know, it's expensive, but some of the best work, man. Just the detail in those guns alone, you know, it's like wow. And in that center patch, man, it's just all the colors. I didn't know that it was going to cost me so much more adding all those colors, but man, they do look good, don't they? Well, I'm glad they came in, man. I was worried to death about that. They came in today. It took them 10 fucking working days, huh? Double what it's supposed to take, man. I was worried about the government shut down and shit getting lost. I'll have to see if Chris got his or not. I mean, I couldn't believe the detail in those AR-15s, man. It's like I don't know, sure, bro. A lot easier. It will break my cookies back. Uh, I don't know if you can tell it on this camera or not. Yeah, it's hard to tell. But in that AR-15, the way they stacked the thread to where like the little lever on the lever on the buttstock, the retractable buttstock, it's raised. They're indented. The receiver's higher than the magazine, what you know, in the handle or the. I mean, it's just the way that. I mean, you can feel it and feel the raised and lowered areas, man. I was really really pleased with the work. I mean, you can see the trigger work and everything. It looks awesome. But yeah, they did some fine work on them, and those center patches are real nice too. I'm glad you like it, brother. My wheels are off my damn chair. I have to pick it up. I'm glad you like it. How you like that artwork? I started out with some AI artwork, but man, AI they mess guns up. So the pistol had like 2 triggers, 2 hammers, like 6 fingers on it. It was horrible, and it might have had 2 barrels superimposed or some shit. It was all messed up. The jar wasn't right. It had 5 or 6 fingers holding the jar, not including the thumb, and I had to go in and edit a lot of that stuff out. And I learned how to use GIMP, which ain't easy either, uh, and clean it all up. And the corn kernels, of course, something went up through half the corn, and I had to take all that out and delete it, and then redo all the corn kernels and stuff. It was a lot of bit of work. Hell yeah. I never thought about putting Dawn in there. That'd probably be a good idea. I just use just alcohol in it. That'd be a good idea. Well, yeah, that's awesome, brother. Cheers, brother. Yeah, let's have a shot. It's time to have a shot. It's Saturday. Drank all my daggone root beer last night. The last one, well, not all of it. I drank the last one I had in here. A little more clear. Man, that root beer, more I drink of it, shoot, man, that's so good. No, absolutely not. And for anybody out there, if you want to make something with the militia logo, as long as you're not making it to sell them or produce them or make a bunch of giveaway or anything like that, if you just want to make something for yourself, you're fine. Yeah, we just don't want people reproducing it and then, us look on eBay and start seeing moonshine militia apparel on eBay and stuff. But yeah, if you just want to do something for yourself like that, a little craft or something, there's been quite a few people do that. You're perfectly fine to do that. And that's my artwork that you got right there. So if you want to use that, it's fine. But Damon said the same about his artwork too. That if you just want to make something personal, touch bases with him if you want to use the traditional logo that we got. Um, just hit base. Damon doesn't care. Just let him know that you're just going to do it for you. Make a little light box for yourself, and he'll be fine with it. I know a lot of people out there that have those little lasers that burn wood and etch wood and stuff, and they do stuff like that for themselves, and that's not biggie. We just don't want people doing it for profit and selling it and stuff. All right, let's see. Well, I was retired in my wash today. So you ran it? It was in the stars now, over a year's worth. I'm confused now. What you got going on? You didn't have to dump anything, surely. Don't ever dump anything unless it's scorched. Now, if you scorch your corn real bad and get that real bad scorched flavor, it's hard to clean up. But if you're if you just got something that doesn't taste good, run it again and try to infuse some other flavors in it. If that doesn't work, put it on a column. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Clint and I are. We're going to talk about, clean the liquor up and how you can, use a column and get some of the, get some of those off flavors out by just distilling more pure alcohol and eliminating a lot of the water, because most of your flavor is carried in the water itself. Alcohol doesn't really bond. It does some with flavonoids and all that, flavors and stuff. There's a lot of different technical terms for them, phenols and all that, but I just call them flavors, for simplicity. You're not whether it's an advanced class or anything, but so it doesn't bond with the alcohol so much as it does the water. So the higher the proof, and dancing around those bubble plates, those copper bubble plates, will help remove sulfites and stuff. So you'll get some of that sulfury taste out, and it's pretty good. Uh, a light box is basically like a piece of glass. A lot of people have these lasers and they'll etch it, and you can paint one side of it and laser etch and stuff. I know Steve does that too, and you can mount it in wood framing and put some lights behind it, and it's just hanging on the wall, and it's nice. They're nice, real nice, kind of like neon signs, but they're not neon. They're just it's a light box behind it with shining through, and some of them have colors and stuff. I know Steve had some that were pretty nice, and we're gonna try to pick those up at the end of the month and sell them. Probably be on fieldbilly.com, or we'll put them on the militia page, and people can buy them off there. 3D print, yeah. Yeah, send me one too. I want to see what it looks like. Man, I'm so glad those got there, though. I was worried to death that they weren't going to get there. I was going to have to bite the bullet and send another one out. But from now on, I guess I'm going to have to send them tracking and insured so we know where the hell they are, because U.S. mail, man, they're slow and independable. They're not dependable like they used to be, man. I had so many people and so much, and just my stuff, just lately, like, just utility stuff, payments and checks in the mail and get lost and shit. And I don't do that auto debit shit. You know, I'll send a damn check everything. I'm old school as fuck when it comes to that. I don't trust any of that online stuff. I don't like all, I do Zelle and PayPal. That's it. I don't have Cash App and all this stuff on my phone and Apple Pay and all that shit. Oh no. You just begging somebody to take your damn money. Yeah, it's either lacto or it could be just a buildup of butyric acid. The vomit smell is a lot of times it's a butyric acid. A lot of times that will esterify, believe it or not, if you let it go. And it takes a little while sometimes, but it'll esterify into some pretty good, flavors actually. So it's not always bad. And the lacto, it'll get a rotten, acrid smell to it that a lot of people think's pukey as well. And you just gotta let it go. And once it runs its course, it'll be good. Now you don't want to get your lacto early because it does compete with the sugars, uh, with the yeast for the sugars and stuff. So it'll lower your alcohol, production. But getting it there towards the end, and it get like oats I was talking about earlier with the mouthfeel. The lactose will give you a good mouthfeel and some decent flavors sometimes. Yep. Hey, let's see. Let me up my calendar. It's been longer than that for me. Let's see. It's been about a month, from a little over a month for me. Over a month. That's a long time, man. I'm gonna do some apple, and then I'm gonna start doing grains. I've been doing brandies forever, and a bunch of brandies, but I got to do some apple, and while they're cheap, and a lot of apples out there cheap right now if you can get them. And I'm gonna do some apple first, and then after that, I got to get some more corn. I got some, but I'm gonna start doing a bunch of corn and getting. I got a couple of 15-gallon barrels I gotta get filled up. Once I do that, I'll be able to slow down a little bit and just sippy sip off my barrels. I got a 5-gallon too. I'm gonna put brandy in, but I'm gonna do a couple of different whiskeys for each of my 15s. I'm gonna do pretty much just a corn liquor for one, and then I'm gonna do a um, wheated whiskey with a little bit of oats and for the other ones, and barley. Yeah, 4 grain corn, wheat, oats, and barley. Yeah, corn, oats, wheats, barley. Yep, 4 grain. And that's pretty good stuff. I like that. But after those 15s will take about a year, 8 months to a year, depending on the conditions and proof, to age properly, and that'll be pretty good next year. Then after that, I'll probably just put some rum in there or something like that and let it sit for a while. Or some tequila, That tequila sitting on the barrel's awful good. My buddy Jeff hooked me up with some of his, man, aged tequila, and I swear that's some of the best tequila I've ever drank. Man, this killer, I ain't seen him in here than that. But damn good tequila, man. Damn good. I used to drink a lot of tequila. Yeah, if you're gonna grain mash, yeah, a few days, or you can just watch your gravity. But yeah, most of your grain mashes, they go pretty quickly, 3, 4, 5 days. So if you can, just wait until you get, like 1020 or something like that, and then introduce your lacto, and it'll have enough sugar left in there to where it and the yeast both can work together and consume the rest of the sugar, and it won't affect it. But if you get it early, it can have a pretty big impact. If it, like a lot of people, if you have an infected, fermentation vessel and stuff, and your first day you're starting to see lacto, usually you're not going to get as much alcohol out of it. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm looking to see if there's anything going on in the groups to talk about. All right, let's see. Looks like anybody got any more questions out there? Man, I wish old Jim Styles wouldn't have left. I'd like to answer his questions. I'll have to reach out on Facebook to him. I have to. Let me open that up so I won't forget it. I don't want people thinking that we're ignoring them or anything like that. A lot of people. Don't want anybody thinking that. Post another link here. Well, I'll be damned. Lord have mercy on us all. I tell you what. Sometimes it aggravates the shit out of me. It's definitely. I don't know how all that happened. Good. Got a couple more links posted there that I wasn't able to before. I guess I should just go slower when I post them so I can get them all. But I wanted to get it in that group too. That's a smaller group, but it's got a lot of good people in there. Now, that's what I was going to do. Jim. Just one second, because I want to try to answer any question anybody has. And Jim, pretty knowledgeable, so his question would probably be a toughie, to be honest. All right, yeah, I can ask him later. But I did notice, well, no, I'm not going to bring it up. All right, let's talk about stills. Is it okay to store your ferment in 5-gallon water jugs? Absolutely. Yeah, if you're talking about just fermentation, I ferment in all of them all the time. You're talking about the big clear blue ones that sit on top of one of them coolers in the offices and stuff that you can buy? Hell yeah. And I'll tell you another thing, a number 10 stopper, and you pull them up by just pound sign 10 on like Amazon and other places. A number 10 stopper will fit right into the top of that, and you can get ones with a hole in it. You can put your airlock in there too. I use it for wine all the time. Now, when you're talking to a lot of these purists and really high-end winemakers and these home winemakers, they'll browbeat the shit out of you if you use one of those as opposed to a $40 glass carboy, right? Okay. And it's porous. It can get gases in there and all this shit. And it's like, man, I don't even have the time to argue with those people. It's to each their own. I'm sure glass is probably better in many ways. The microplastics, porosity. I don't want to get into all that. And I'm not Ernest and Julio Gallo. I'm Moonshiner Santa, and I don't really, my wine's damn good. I've never had any oxidized bad wine from doing that, and I secondary ferment in them too, so I don't give a shit. But especially for like a brandy, the something that you're going to run and you're not going to really age for a long period of time, hell yeah. Now to store high proof in, I'll say no. I don't. I wouldn't store high proof in any kind of plastic for longer than a week or two. And I don't mind doing it short term, or like somebody sends you a little plastic. A lot of the plastic, handshakes and stuff. Yeah, those are fine. I wouldn't. I don't let them sit forever and ever and ever. And if they do, I'll end up probably just dumping it in the tails run, or dumping it in the thumper and redoing it and trying to get some of that stuff out of there. But yeah, if you have a glass, that's definitely the premium, the best. Also stainless steel, these Vever steels, they seal up. They've got an airlock built into the lid. You can use those to ferment in, and they're perfectly fine. Stainless probably better than the plastic. And you can get 18.5-gallon Vever, and you can fill that some bitch up, and do secondary fermentations in that, and you don't get any, I don't get any metal taste or anything like that from it. I wouldn't use copper though, because it gets pretty acidic and it'll let you copper up. But yeah, even stainless milk cans, those milk cans, those are fine if you want to drill a hole in one and put a little grommet and then stick your airlock in that. You can do that, or you can put a ferrule on there, and at the top you can get the end cap on your ferrule and drill a hole in the end cap and grommet in that, and just use the airlock in that and use it for that. That ain't no problem at all. That works just fine. But glass is the best if you can find some glass. And when you're out at flea markets and yard sales and stuff, and you see these big old glass, 5-gallon glass jugs, jump all over them, man. Jump all over them. All these old 1-gallon juice jugs, jump all over it, man. And anytime you see, it's a store, and you can see, they've got, selling some juice or something in a glass jar, and it's just a couple few bucks, for the juice. Get it for the jar and the juice. But yeah, I try to, I've got some glass, but I can't afford to pay big money for a bunch of 5-gallon glass vessels. And another thing about those water ones is, once they get stained, like you do the blackberry, and it's secondary ferment. I can show you some, man. They're stained in purple, to a certain, line right at the top, and from like the few inches down, purple. And when they get that way, you can just return them and exchange them and get you a new thing of water. And that water is damn good water to make wine with. A lot of people weary about tap water. And, so I guess if you live in Flint, Michigan, or some places, if tap water is not very good, here we got pretty good tap water, unless it's after a really, really heavy rain, or if it's a heavy drought, it gets a little bit iffy at those times. They tend to chlorinate them a little heavier. But just in typical, our water's in pretty good shape here. You can put Camden tablets in it and kill off anything if you're worried about it. Let it sit for a week and gas it, let it sit open, put a cover over it, keep the dust out of it. But then you can get that drill and your mud mixer, your paint mixer, whatever you got, and churn it up real good and oxygenate it and gas it and degas it. And I know it doesn't get rid of chloramines, but it'll help get rid of any chlorines and a lot of other stuff. And if you got a good filter, like a motorhome filter or a Brita or any of those filters that add, onto the sink or in the refrigerator, those do a good job removing metals and chloramines and a lot of other stuff. So, that's fine to use. But for wines, if I know that I'm going to be drinking it as a wine, or if you're wanting to do beer, it's best to go ahead and distill yourself some water, or buy some distilled water, or get some, mineral water, or run it through a good filter like that. You can do reverse osmosis, but if you do, just keep in mind you're removing pretty much everything from that water. And some of those minerals are beneficial, and some of the calcium and some of the other things that are in there. So if you could replace some of those with some calcium carbonate, or I keep some gypsum and some calcium carbonate to add to mine, and that works out pretty well. Flint, Michigan water? I don't think so. Yeah, I think I'd have to pass on that. And around some of these military bases, they've had some issues with some stuff getting in the water tables and stuff I found over the years. I think I don't know. I would name a few, but I'm not sure if it's the right ones. And I don't want to get somebody butthurt at me. Oh, also, I want to wish the Marine Corps a happy 250th birthday to any Marine brothers out there. 250. Did y'all watch that celebration earlier today? Yeah, those big 5-gallon, those work pretty well. All right, and if y'all have questions as Clint and I talk about steels and stuff, feel free to ask you questions anytime. I'm glad I'm able to keep up a little bit today. We didn't have so many questions, but that's what we're here for. So if y'all ever have any questions, be sure to jump in here and ask. But I'm going to try to find some pictures and stuff. And first, I'm going to see if I can find this first picture. There is one of the most simple steels you can see. And it actually is not quite as simple as one might think. When you first look at this, it's just a little football steel and pretty simple. But up in the top here, there's a valve. And right here in the bottom of the football, there's another valve, if you see right next to that bubble. So those valves are for rectification. So you can open up this top valve at a certain time during distillation and let a lot of your pour shots out. And this bottom one you can drain during distillation to get a lot of your tails and oils and stuff that are heavy that fall back down that don't get distilled. So you can drain those out there, or you could retort them right back into the steel if you wanted to. But this is a simple head steel. It's a pot steel with a head. That football is a chamber. It's a head, and it's got a little canister filter on it. So that's probably one of the most simple, steels, other than just the 3 pots that they make, that you can get. Now, moving on up a little bit, I think I got a hybrid steel here. Well, where did I put the picture at? Let's see. Maybe it's not in there. Let's see if I stick it here. Damn, I know I took a picture. And here's what steels look like back in the old days. You hear me talk about them using old steel drums, and here they've welded them together, or they might have cut them and just forced them in there. I don't know. This looks like it might have been a weld. Yeah, I'd say it'd been welded. But these are just oil drums back in the day, and unfortunately, there was quite a few of those. I think I got some more pictures of some. Yeah, there you go. That wouldn't be, people say, oh, that liquor back in the old days was the best liquor ever. No. You can see plastic. You can see carbon steel. You probably had oil residue from the oil that was in it before. So, yeah, that's old time steels that you really, that's when they used car radiators for condensers and a lot of shit like that. And yeah, not what you want. Yeah, it wasn't all that great. All right, let's see. Well, where in the hell did I put two pictures? Did I not sort those? Let's see. It might still be in screenshots. And I just take screenshots and save them. Yeah, soldered. Yeah, probably were. Uh, well, I'll field your question, Kirk. Just one second. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I didn't move it over from screenshot. There on it. Let me. I'll probably have more, but let me just move this one over and show it. This is. I'll show you what we talk about when we talk about retort. Now this is a big old fancy steel here. You'll see the big pot there to the right. It's got what they call a swan neck, and that's that cap they call it a swan neck, and you can see why. I don't know. That's what the old timers called it. I'm sure there's a official name for it. Some people call them horse heads. That's not typical horse head. That's swan neck, but you can see it going into a couple of thumpers. And you can see this second thumper has got a special little reflux, looks like a deflegmator built into it, right? And then on the far left, that big tall copper thing looks like a column. That's just a condenser coil inside of there. What's up, Dark? Good to see you, brother. Hey, brother, you don't have to apologize. Actually, we missed a couple of weeks, so a couple of episodes. We got kind of behind, and then see, last Wednesday, I guess last Wednesday we were on, and Saturday we didn't because of Roger had that Mary Cutter girl on, so I wanted everybody to watch that. She's a pretty good singer. I like her stuff, and wanted them to a lot of people be able to watch that, not to have to pick between one or the other. If it's just regular shows, I don't care. Everybody can pick what they want to watch. But for that, I wanted everybody to be able to watch it, and I would watch it too. But so we missed a couple. So we're trying to get caught up. But to get to your question, Kirk, I do. A lot of people don't, and you really once you get into a set pattern, and you know what your if you're using tap water, or what the bottled water or whatever kind of water that you're using, spring water, usually there's not a lot of fluctuations in those, right? So, and if you're using the same basic recipe, it's not critical. You'll know how much citric acid to add to it to get it to 5.3, which you should do. Some people don't fool with that. Some people don't adjust pH at all. But pH is important for several factors. First and foremost, when you're doing your mashing, before you cook your corn even, you should pH that water down to 5.3. Reason being that is at that acidity level, the conversion from your long complex starches into simple sugars is much more effective in that acidic environment. So your conversions will be slightly better. It's not a market difference. It's not going to be night and day, but every little bit helps, And if you cut corners in every corner, you can tell. But if you try to do everything that you can, a lot of little things add up. So make a little difference here. If I do this, it'll make a little difference here. If I do this, if I add that nutrients, it'll make a little difference. If I, the happier you keep those yeast, the better. And there's a lot of little things that can make them slightly unhappy. There's a lot of things that can make them grossly unhappy. And that's when you start getting a lot of butyric acid, and a lot of strange foul flavors and odors and stuff coming off. A lot of time temperature will have an impact on it. So, there's a lot of things that you can do to keep those yeast happy. And pH is something simple. It's as easy as, how much citric acid am I going to have to add to this water to bring it down to 5.3, without pH. you know, if you've done it a million times and you know your water, you're starting out right at about 7, and it takes 3 tablespoons to get it down X amount of gallons down to your 5.3, then you won't, after you do that a few times, it's like, hey, yep, yep, good, 5.3. And you don't really need to do it so much anymore because you know a few tablespoons and they're good, right? So once you get into the groove, you can rely on it less, but it's important, you know. To some people, it's not. You know, if you're out in the wood shiner, you know they're not going to have pH test paper. They're not going to have citric acid. Most of them, you know, they're just making backwood shine. You know, but you know, I'm you know I try to make do a little more scientific with it because you can get better results. You know, and I'm not saying my shine's better because I do this than others. You know, there's shiners out there. Like I say, once you get into the groove of doing things, you know what you need to do. Now, I will say with a sugar shine or with rums or with anything, the tequilas, anything where you have a lot of syrups and a lot of high sugar, and sugar is your primary component that you're feeding your yeast with to make the alcohol. And they're not, you know, simple sugars that you're getting out of grains and other sources. Yeah, yeah, you definitely need to pay attention to your pH with those because they tend to pH crash because they work so hard, so fast, they crash and burn, and the pH crashes as well, and they'll drop really low. And any of those type, you know, mashes or washes or whatever you want to call them, they'd be a wash. But you want to add some of those oyster shells we talked about, the crushed oyster shells you can get at the feed supply store. You know, clean them up real good, boil them if you want to, kill all the bacteria on them, rinse them, and then use them, tie them up in a cheesecloth sack, throw them in there. When you're done, pull them out, rinse them off. You can reuse them until they just go away. If you do sour mashing, you just leave it in there and it'll serve its purpose until they just dissolve away. And you know, calcium is calcium carbonate, you know, crushed oyster shells, and that calcium is essential in the fermentation process. You have to have it. There's calcium uptake going on in the actual chemical reactions going on, and you have to have that calcium. That's why this limestone water is so sought after to ferment in, because it has that, naturally has that calcium and a lot of other minerals that are great in it. Problem is sometimes it has iron and you want to stay away from iron. So anytime you're using well water, I know somebody was talking about using well water, you know, if it has a lot of iron in it, don't I wouldn't use it. You know, it's going to definitely have an impact on your distillate and your flavors for sure. It's, you definitely don't want iron. It's a big no bueno. Um, so the graduated cylinders, I don't know, but ask him. If not, I know that a lot of little kits, you know, on Amazon come with them. You know, some of them are like silicone plastic, and that silicone is inert to the alcohol, so it's not going to be a problem. And you drop them, they don't break, right? I got a nice glass one, and I got a silicone. Which one do I use? The silicone. But yeah, I've got to get a new proofing hydrometer. I don't know how in the hell the end broke off. The top part. I mean, it's still bob, but I guess they rely on that pressure. You know, there's pressure inside that thing, so I'm sure it's not reading straight. So I'm gonna have to get me a new proofing hydrometer. But I'd say he's got graduated cylinders. If not, I think you could probably get a combo deal off Amazon that has a hydrometer and or a triple scale and a graduated cylinder both. But I mean, you could use a tall jar too. Use a quart jar; they don't sink that far down into them. So, but what I want is one that's got numbers on both sides, because no matter how you look at it, it's always that number's facing away from you. Now, how in the hell does that happen, man? Never fails. But look at this big steel here. I think this is a close to about a 500-gallon pot. As you can see, it's a double thump. And in that second thump, they got a little bit of a deflagmator in there on the top of it, and then it goes into that column. That's just a condenser, that big tall condenser column. It looks like a column, but it's just a condenser flake, I guess you should call it instead of that. But yeah, it is pretty. That's a beaut for sure. But that's a double retort, is what they call that. So each of those stumpers, what we call doublers, that's a retort. Now, some retorts will drain back into the main steel, whatever. A lot of if there becomes so much liquid gets in here, it will automatically just flow back into the pot, right? That way it won't ever fill up. Yeah, these pretty nice one. But if you had just this swan neck pot, and if you notice it goes down, that's for flavor. Some of the necks don't go down like that. Some of them go straight out, and some of them go up. If it goes up, you get a lot more reflex. If it goes straight out, it's kind of in the middle of a little bit of reflex, a little bit more flavor, and then down gets you a lot more flavor. Yeah, that's pretty nice looking. Let's see what else we can find. What if somebody asked about continuous distillation earlier? And let me find a continuous still. Buddy of mine used to have one. If you're on the DIY Shine Stuff page, you'll see Eric Ayers, an admin in there as well, and thing. I tell you what, y'all don't mind watching videos on here, do you? I just found a pretty good little video. If you want to watch it, it looks like a pretty informative distillation on distillation, and it's only 7 minutes. So let's just watch this video. Let me get it queued up here, and let me get this screen maximized so you don't see any other shit on there. And let me get back to Lord help us, I can't do nothing hardly. Um, theater mode. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so let me come to StreamYards and let me get rid of that. This be a good little video. It's only about 7 minutes. So I think y'all like it. It's about continuous steels, and I'll talk a little bit more about that and how you can do a small one. Are you talking about feet of copper? I'd say 12 in a 5 gallon. I think Phil said he does 10, 12, something like that would be fine in a 5 gallon. If you got like a 10 gallon, probably be better because the more water you can get in that flake, it's flake stands what's traditionally called, but we call it, condenser bucket or whatever vessel. But yeah, if you get like a 20 gallon one or a 10 gallon one, I mean, and run 20 feet in it, you'd be able to upgrade to about anything you want. Yeah, it's gonna be nice. Let's see. Let me see how to do this. Hang on. Share screen. Screen sharing. Is it going to ask me? Oh, perfect. All right, share. Now let me go over to here and hit play.
Last time we talked about the parts of a pot still. This time we're going to talk about the parts of a column still and how a column distillation works.
Miss Brewer.
So, let's go.
This should be pretty good. I've not seen this before.
We've talked a lot about distilling in pot stills, which produces a more flavorsome distillate. The downside of distilling in pot stills is that we have to do it in batches, which isn't very efficient. If we want to be more efficient with our distilling process and produce more distillate with a higher alcohol concentration, then we can do this as a continuous distillation in a column still. This is the kind of still where neutral grain spirit.
Now let me interject here for the ones that don't know. When they say column still, they're not talking about a hybrid like what we do, where we put a column on our pot still. That's called a hybrid still. This is the whole still itself is the column. So what's happening is at the bottom of it you'll have heated distillate and water, and your alcohol, your mash, will come in at mid column, and as it drops down, it meets with the heat coming up from below. That stops it, and it actually converts to vapor inside the actual steel column itself. So at different points, and this is where you can fractionally distill, where your higher volatiles will go to the very top, your middle of the run hearts will be at the bottom, and all your low wine and all your lower grade stuff and your tails tend to go down to the bottom, and that's what maintains the boiling and your water, and it keeps it hot in the bottom, and it keeps that vapor coming up hot in the steel. So as it's dripping in through the middle, by the time it drops halfway down that steel, it's already into a vapor, and it's separating as it goes up into the still. And hopefully they'll show that in this. I don't know. They may just show them.
96% ABV spirit is produced. A continuous.
Let me back it up. How many?
This is the kind of still where neutral grain spirit, or 96% ABV 96. Spirit, is produced. A continuous distillation system is just as it sounds. It's a distillation that can keep running for hours and even weeks. And a column still is also just as it sounds. It's a still composed of a few columns that are connected together. So to keep things simple and easy to understand, we'll just look at a distillation system with a single column rather than multiple columns. Here we can see a single column which is divided into a stripping section and a rectification section. And there's an inlet near the top of the column where the wash enters. And the wash is the fermented liquid which has the alcohol that we're trying to concentrate through the distillation process. Now the stripping section is below the feed inlet, and this is where the less volatile components are most concentrated, since the more volatile components from the wash will be stripped out and rise upwards. The section above the feed inlet is the rectification section. And this part of the column,
right now in the rectification section is like what I was talking about at the top of that football steel, where you could open it up and get rid of that. So it's really not efficient as that, but that's the principle behind it.
Interact and are enriched by the condensed liquid that falls down the column. Now let's take a closer look at what's going on. The preheated wash enters the column from an inlet near the top of the column. Inside the column, this liquid gets heated until it turns into vapor. The vapor rises up and meets a perforated plate inside of the column. The column is filled with these perforated plates.
We call them bubble
Since the column is being heated from the bottom, the column is coolest at the top and hottest at the bottom, which means that each plate is slightly cooler than the plate that sits beneath it. Right. While the vapor moves up through the column, some of the vapors will cool down, turn back into liquid, and fall back down again.
Reflux.
Now the more volatile parts, like alcohol, will be stripped out of the column and will get to rise to the top of the column.
Right.
while the less volatile parts, like water, will continue to go down the column.
And tails.
Just a reminder here that volatility is the likelihood of a substance to evaporate. So since alcohol has a lower boiling point than water, we can say that alcohol is more volatile than water as it turns into a vapor at a much lower temperature.
Now this is more towards fractional distillation. You can fractionally distill in this column. Now you'll see, not in this particular one, but in some of the ones that are huge. This one's pretty big, but there's some out there that are huge. Now you'll notice a lot of times there'll be like a T coming out of different parts of the column, 3 or 4 different places going all the way up. And off of those come different volatile alcohols. So you can get different volatiles coming off and at each one, like the higher end will have your higher value alcohols, and the lower ones will be into the tails and some of the oils and stuff that come on. So you can more fractionally distill in that than you can just in a typical pot still.
As the alcohol is more volatile, we can expect that at the top of the column we'll get the highest concentration of alcohol. Whereas since the water is not as volatile, it ends up going down the column, and the bottom part of the column will have a lower alcohol concentration. At the very top of the column, we have our highly volatile vapors, which we want to collect. So the top of the column will lead to a condenser, which will cool the vapors back down until they condense into a liquid which will be collected. Like I mentioned before, the column has many plates inside of it. We really like these plates because they help keep the liquid for a while, which means that the rising vapors have to pass through and interact with the liquid. This ensures there's more contact time between the vapors and the liquid.
Now, if you notice too, at the top of this big column, they've got water coming in, so it's kind of like almost a little deflegmator to help encourage, reflux. And that'll also help increase the proof and the amount of reflux,
which will improve separation of the different volatile components.
Yeah, the separation that she's talking about there is fractional distillation.
Help us get more reflux in the still, which is something we really like to see. Reflux is when vapors condense into liquid and then they turn back into vapors later on and are enriched with even more higher volatile congeners. This reflux is the reason why, as the vapors move up the column, they get purer and higher in alcoholic strength. So let's take a look at the different kind of plates that exist within a column still. There are sieve trays, which are metal plates with holes in them. You can see that the falling liquid comes down the downcomer pipe, and in the middle area there's interaction between the pooling liquid and the vapor, which rises up through the holes in the plate.
Right. Now, also at the top, they'll adjust the coldness going into that deflegmator to keep the balance of that liquid that she's talking about on the plate. So if your liquid's getting too high and you're getting too much at the top of your steel of your column, and most of your liquids kind of focused on at the top, they'll adjust the temperature of the deflegmator up a little bit. They'll warm it up so you get less reflux, so it has an opportunity to drop down a little further, and they want it to kind of bounce and play towards the middle, and that way they can get a lot more, I guess, reflux out of it and get more plate action out of more plates, because if it's off the top, it's not really taking advantage of all the plates below it.
Then the low volatility liquid continues to move down the column, while the enriched high volatility vapor moves up the column. Here you can see a bubble cap tray, which is another type of plate. And when the vapor rises through the chimney, it's forced downward by the cap, and it's directed down by the cap, and it leaves and goes into the liquid that's in the tray. Some problems that we can experience with this are dumping and flooding, for instance. So dumping is when the rising vapor rate is too slow, and we get more liquid being dumped onto the plates with no vapor rising up. Whereas flooding is when the rising vapor is too fast. This creates a holdup of liquid on the plates, which causes the pressure to drop dramatically inside. While I've kept things simple by explaining continuous distillation with a single column, in reality, continuous distillation involves multiple columns, since the number of plates we'd have to put into a single column would make the still too tall for practical purposes. As well, while the top condenser can fully condense all the vapors as distillate, we actually don't want this, since we'll want to vent out some very volatile congeners to ensure that we've removed them from our final product distillate.
Fours and heads. That's at the top there. That's mostly fours and heads.
Learning about how a column distillation works. What I explained was a very simplified process, and it can get a lot more complicated than that. In the meantime, if you'd like to support the channel, give this video a thumbs up or leave a comment down below. And to see more distilling...
That's a good simplified explanation of it. That's pretty cool. So did that take up the whole stage or just that small portion? Were y'all able to see that okay? Right. Yeah, it was. Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to have something like that. And with something like that, so you can fractionally distill, because within the still itself, you have levels, and at each level, you have, different content. At the top, you've got your most volatile, which is your fours and heads. Then just underneath that, and it looked to me like, with the deflegmator up there, a lot of that gets turned back down, and they were taking, out of just below that, where the ethanol would be. But it's pretty interesting. And let's show some pictures of some hybrid. Let me find a good hybrid. Let's see if she has any more. Yeah, she's got a lot of different stuff. But she has some pretty interesting videos if you want to check her out. She's she's got some pretty interesting stuff. I guess she's a legal distiller by trade, so that's interesting. She makes a lot of noise and stuff. Miss Brewbird. Cool. So let's find. Let's see what this is here. All right, here's another little video we can watch. I like videos. Y'all like watching the videos with little explanations as we go? Let me know if you like it. Wait, whoa, what we got going on here? There we go. All right, now we're back to normal. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, let's watch this another one. This is only a couple of minutes long, and it looked like it had some pretty good. I see some numbers going down, so I guess some people don't like watching them. I guess they figure they watch those on their own, but we can ask questions from those after we watch them. So stick around if you got questions, and we can watch them. But I enjoy showing them on here, especially when we're getting late. We've been here a couple hours. I guess a lot of people ask a lot of questions, and I enjoy showing them, and also answering little questions about them as we go. Well, let me make sure I got ready. It's ready, and share. Let's go ahead and this will be the quick.
Column stills have been around for roughly 2 centuries. Column stills, as their name suggests, are composed of straight columns. In bourbon production, there will likely only be a single column used to produce a constant stream of low wines. The name of the spirit that comes
I'm gonna back this
of
up
low
just a little bit.
wines. The name of the spirit that comes from the first distillation column used to
Now look at this one. Now you see at the bottom here of this big tall still, you've got a pot right next to it. And I think that's pretty much feeding the still on up. So it's coming into this column as a vapor. So this is not a continuous still. This is a column still. I don't think this is continuous. But that pot does look like it has some mash maybe coming into it through the top there. So it may be, and that could be also used just to generate steam to go into the bottom of it. You'll see at the bottom of this column in that larger little section there that's a little bit wider, that's your boiler. And they feed at the middle or upper end of the column. And like I say, the liquid drops until it vaporizes, and then it will rise and settle into an area of the column in which it's at an equilibrium. So if it's a higher volatile, it's not going to be happy till it gets to the top. And then the lower, just underneath that, will be your ethanol. So you'll have your 4 shots, your heads and ethyl acetates and all that stuff, and your methanol all on the top. And then you'll have your ethanol just underneath that, and then below that will be a lot of your tails and a lot of your oils and fusel oils and other things that are still volatile, but they're much less volatile. And you can fractionally separate them that way, but I don't see much fractional on this column. But a lot of these columns, you'll see a little T coming off each section, and it can pull whatever is in that section off and fractionally distill it. But let's watch this pretty nice little setup here too. Kind of looks a little bit like bluegrass, but there's a little nicer. Anyway.
to produce a constant stream of low wines, the name of the spirit that comes from the first distillation. Those low wines are then fed into a doubler, which is essentially a small pot still that works continuously. With vodka, where flavors need to be almost completely removed, a high degree of separation is desired. There may be 4 or 5 connected columns that all serve to purify the spirit to increasingly greater degrees. Of course, there are quite a few variations found in between for different distilleries and spirits. Column stills operate continuously. This means that a controlled amount of fermented wash is constantly pumped into the still, while a steady supply of freshly distilled spirit emerges on the other side. Coming up from the bottom of the column is a blast of steam, which heats the still. The column is composed of a series of plates or trays, since each tray is slightly cooler than the one beneath it. This causes a bit of condensation from the vapors to form on each tray.
I think she meant each tray is a little cooler than the one above it. But I don't know, the steam's coming from the bottom, so maybe...
Vapors constantly coming through the system. These condensed vapors are redistilled and thrown back into a vapor state. This rapid transformation from vapor to vapor happens over and over again. As the vapors make their way up the column, the reaction increasingly separates heavier compounds, like fusel oils, from the lighter compounds, like ethanol. As a result, this increases the purity of the spirit. Eventually, it will reach a point where the distiller is ready to draw it from the still. These vapors are still hot and need to be condensed into liquid.
That ain't no drip.
Column stills must be monitored.
How would you like to come off of that fast?
Because every step can have huge impacts on the final spirit quality. To learn more, head on over to distiller.com or download the app on your smartphone today.
Yeah, how'd you like to have it coming off your still that fast, man? That's coming off pretty fast, wasn't it? Dang. Yeah, I'm drinking some Eau Clear. Some Weeded Bloody Butcher Sour Mash. I'm on my last jar of that Jeff made me, and then after that, I don't know. I've got some other stuff here, but that's one of my favorites right now. Other than my brandies in there. But I got a few little things here. I got some Big Easy Peach. That's pretty good shit. I got quite a few. Don't know where Chris is, but well, let's see. Well, dang on it. Wouldn't you know it'd be the last damn pouch I pull out of here. But Chris sent me a little bit of sippy sip of this, and Chris makes pretty good liquor. This is pretty good. When I first got it, it seemed a little hot. And I asked him what preg was. It was 120. I'm like, well, damn, it seemed a little hotter than that. But since I've had it a few weeks, it's cooled down. But I'm going to have to get out of this plastic container. All those, I'm going to have to jar them up. Well, how's it going, James? From James. Is it the James River or Thames River? I don't know. Maybe it is the Thames. I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong. How things going on in England? See a lot of turmoil over there. I don't know. I don't know if that's just the way it is all over England, or if just the news going to the worst area to try to dramatize it. But it looks like everybody's got some issues with over migration. I don't know. I don't want to get too political, but hope things are okay over there and y'all get that settled out. Because it's not like they're just regular migrants, and it's like, a lot of people just don't want to talk about it, and everybody wants to put their heads in the sand, and there comes a point in time when you just got to face it, and deal with it, and you can't keep your head in the sand forever and just be passive, because that's how you get overrun. Peach. Yeah, I got a little Big Easy peach down there. Ian makes some good peach brandy. If y'all have never tried it, he's one of his specialties is peach. I guess banana too. Now he likes his banana, but that peach is pretty good stuff. I did some banana, and it came out pretty well. It's interesting flavor. It's kind of a dark flavor, but it was good. It just didn't have really a good front note or a back note. It just had that darkness taste to it. And a lot of times when you have something like that, you just got to figure out what you can pair it with, to make it work. Like if you've got some liquor comes out and it's just kind of bitter tasting, fine, but just sourish bitter, makes limoncello, make lemonade out of that shit, turn it, kind of work it that way. And I with this dark stuff, I infused with some root beer, and man, that darkness and that root beer just paired right up to get that dark root beer flavor. And I didn't overdo it, make it real sweet and low proof and all that. It's still 100 proof, and it's got that root beer flavor. It's damn good with that darkness, man. It's pretty good. Best root beer shine I've ever tasted, but it is post. Corn. I've got some apple to do, Chris. That's what I'm doing next. I got a lot of apples, and I've got a lot of apple juice. I'm gonna get some apples. They're cheap right now, so I'm gonna do some apple, and then all the next. Yeah, brother. I mean, I pray for y'all. It's a mess, and I hate getting political and talking political, but when you got politicians that are more concerned about their pocketbook and making money than they are their citizens, and they sell out to people and allow that mass migration to come in and try to take over, and that's what they do. That's their whole purpose. I'm not going to, we know who I'm saying. That's their whole purpose. So, instead of coming in Trojan horses like they did 1,000 years ago, now they're just letting them in. And that's just stupid. And we did that for a while too. And we're putting an end to that. And now we're having to clean it up. Ireland's cleaning it up. Everybody's cleaning it up. Poland said hell no from the very get-go. And I ain't talking about politics, but really this goes beyond politics. This is, the enemy. They're the enemy. I mean, they've declared war on us, and they have since, before the Crusades. It's been a battle with this forever. And you got a bunch of woke people that can't we all just get along? Well, it would be nice if they were willing to do that, but they're not. So, yeah, I ain't going there. But It's, you can only be so passive and so woke for so long, and then it's either, just forfeit your country and open up Sharia law and start wearing, a turban, or maintain your sovereignty and fight back, and that's what you got to do, because it's evil, very evil. The shit that they've done, yeah, it's this isn't about Democrat, Republican. This supersedes all that shit. This isn't about working party versus others. This is life or death for your country, because they ruin every country that they take over. You look at Iran, look at pictures of Iran back in the 70s, man. It was nice, metropolitan, people dressed normal, you know, had women in shorts and regular clothing and men, in jeans. It's just normal, it's a normal life. And you look at it now and it's dirty, it's grungy, it's rubble, it's taking it back hundreds of years, and they're just not civilized, the things that they do. Did you see all the Palestinians that they were executing that they thought might have been turnkeys? They might have been, helping Israel. So just go ahead and just execute them, mass executions. The things they do to children and babies. Man, yeah, they ain't no love lost for me, man. I hate them, and I hate being that way, and I hate having that kind of hate. And I don't harbor that kind of hate for anybody but them. But yeah, and it's just not the alien invaders. It's just not like a bunch of people from Mexico and some of these other countries. It's for us. It's a lot of criminals were dumped into our country. They emptied their jails because it was draining their taxes, having to maintain. Of course, keeping prisoners alive and fed and guarded and stuff takes tens of thousands, not hundred thousands each a year, right? So it adds up. So a lot of these countries, instead of having to spend all that money, they just send them on the buses and send them here. And there's a lot of people, that help fund that. They literally bust them to the Mexican border. Literally, we saw it happen. We watched it happen, and we did nothing. That worries me so much. And I hate getting political, but this is more. It's not really politics. This isn't about Democrats and Republicans or working party and all that. This is life or death, or sovereignty or not, and if you're a Democrat and then you're not against that, then you're not a true patriot or an American. I hate to say it, but all Democrats were against it just 10 years ago, but some reason all of a sudden they're trying to, propagandize you and brainwash you into thinking that it's okay. And that worries the shit out of me, because people are being brainwashed into this. Poor goats and camels, man. Yeah. But I hate talking about that, but I pray for y'all in England. I know you're going through some turmoil times, more so than what we have here. And I pray you get it cleaned up, get them out of there, and elect the people that want to maintain sovereignty and the rule of law. I'll operate on the gray side, and haven't done a lot of things, but I know the risk I'm taking. I know what I'm doing is illegal, but it's not killing people or raping babies and beheading people, and it's not a crime like that. It's a very soft crime. It's not even as bad as shoplifting in my mind. I think it's something we should be able to do anyway. I think this is my life, liberty, and my pursuit of happiness, and this is what I do is one of my hobbies, to enjoy myself and pass my time, and I think I should have every right to do that. As long as I'm not out selling it and doing all these things, and they shouldn't give a shit what I'm doing. But yeah, not just flying them. They were just letting them cross the border anywhere. Just come on in. Here's a cell phone, and here's a here, we'll fly you up and we'll put you up in this fine hotel. We've leased out hotels in New York, and we'll put you up in one of those, give you a cell phone, and take care of you. We'll feed you. And these damn people were complaining about the food they were given. That really bothered me. But yeah, if it were just decent people coming in and just wanting to better their lives and get a job and become a citizen and then do it the right way, because I'm all for that, and I'm all for legal immigration for good people. But we got to screen them. We got to know their background. We got to know what kind of people they are. We can't just let these criminal insane people come in, or these Islamists come in that want to take over our country. Hell no. You know, just saw today. I think it's a Marine. They got that. He was ex-Marine. He was still, you know, and I think he was an Uber driver. He got murdered by a bunch of teenagers, a bunch of criminal illegals. Yeah, I mean, it's just, and people don't understand. A lot of these criminal illegals, their lives are nothing like anything that we could understand. And their morals are different than what we could comprehend. Most people can comprehend unless you've seen it. And we just have a normalcy bias. Everybody thinks, well, they're just like we are. Let them come here. No, they're not like us. Not like us at all. So I know I don't get political, and I hate doing that, but mentioning England and the shit they're going through right now, it's worse than here. So I pray for them. And in Ireland, they're fighting back. Scotland hopefully will start, but you know, German needs to. Germans are paranoid. Oh, everybody's gonna call us Nazis if we start doing that. No, that's just propaganda, and they're trying to do that just so they'll play on your sympathies and try to sucker you into just bowing down and allowing it to happen. And who wants to see their country crumble and change? Who wants to see cities and governments and localities turn to Sharia law, and all of a sudden, women have to wear burqas and can't do certain things? No, it's antithetical to everything we believe. It's not freedom at all. So, yeah. Yep. That's awesome. 32 liters. That's 8 gallon and 4 gallon thumper. Awesome. Now, I tell you, if you can buy the copper coil, it's so hard to bend stick copper. I'm not sure what millimeter is. If you got L or M copper, it's really hard to bend without kinking it up. But they make boxed copper that comes and it's coiled up already, and you have to uncoil it. And it's using a lot of supply lines. You get like 5/8 or 3/4, and it's coiled up in a box, and you can just take it straight out of the box, tighten your coils up a little bit for your bucket maybe, and it's so easy, man. You'd never buy another stick and go through the pain of trying to bend it. Now they say if you fill the sticks up with sand, it makes it easier to bend and they won't kink as much. But that's generally for your bigger, 2-inch stuff that's thin. But a lot of that L and M grade, man, it's so thick and hard to bend. It's really tough to bend without kinking. It would. That's really was their goal, Clint, is to make it as bad. Dearborn, yeah, Dearborn's in Michigan, and who would have ever thought that Michigan, Rock City, hardcore Michiganians would ever allow that shit in their country? Who would have ever thought Texas, tough old Texans, would allow them to build a city for just Muslims and almost start to plan to fill it? In West Virginia and other places that have these training camps for Islamists, and people know it and they're still allowing it. There's going to come a day, and everybody needs to prepare. And I'm not calling for war or anything like that, but I'm saying be prepared, because the shit's going to hit the fan, because people aren't going to put up with this shit for long. And you'll see what's going on in England. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And it's the same thing I said about, Trump, when he started doing these sweeps and trying to get rid of these criminal illegals. And if you find an illegal while you're trying to find a criminal illegal, they're still illegal and they need to go back. And if you're going to come back, you got to do it legally. But the criminal illegals, I wouldn't just deport them. We need to send them to a prison somewhere where they're going to be held, and if not, make a special prison for them here and let them eat each other up. But yeah, it's you can't just let them turn them loose and they'll just come right back in, or try to find a way to. But yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd say we're headed for some dark times. Now I knew when they were talking about sweeping and getting rid of we figure there's like 30 million illegals in this country. That's a tenth of our population. That's like 2 or 3 big cities combined of our biggest. That's a lot of people. 10%, 1 in 10. That's massive. And then a lot of those are criminally insane. And that's why you see a lot of crime, and they're not paying taxes, they're working for cash, sending all that money back home, or, not to mention, all the fentanyl and other stuff coming in our country. That's just chemical warfare. That's China killing people without having to take responsibility for it. They send those chemicals to Mexico. They know what they're doing with them. Put them together in Mexico, bring them in here. I mean, just in a few boatloads, man, they found enough to kill the population of our country. Think about that. Yeah, it's yeah, that's why we got that little swamp. What do they call that detention place down there in the Everglades? What's that swamp? Well, I don't know what they call it, but yeah. But yeah, I mean, if we convict people, when they commit capital crimes, you know, yeah, there you go, Gator Alcatraz. That's right. And I know, there's a lot of people, and this isn't about DEI, and this isn't about abortion, and this isn't about allowing girls and men's sports. This isn't about all the little bullshit trivia things that the Democrats and Republicans argue about. This is the sovereignty of our country, and this is the safety of our country. And if you're not concerned about that, I don't give a fuck if you're a Democrat or Republican. You're a piece of shit, and you're not a patriot. Now, I'm sorry, but if you don't, you need to rethink of what's going on, because they will, and they have taken over many countries, and they're going to continue to. They'll tell you that. At least, some people, they hide it. These people, they don't even hide it, man. They just come right out and tell you what their plans are. We're going to either convert you or we're going to kill you. Now, if you're okay with that, fuck, I don't know what to say. You need your head examined, or you just might put a burk on and become a bitch. I don't know, but I can't imagine anybody being okay with that, being a patriot and loving our country, and it's against everything that we stand for. And it has, like I say, it has nothing to do with a deer or an elephant or a donkey. It has nothing to do with a party. You should feel this way for your country, and and the media and the propagandists and all these multimillionaire, international people that are part of the cabal, that the deep state, or they want to propagandize you and have you, feel guilty for thinking this way. Patriotism, that you should feel guilty. That's racism, being a patriot. You're a racist. And I hear all these people, well, you're against all these illegals, you're coming in here, that's racist. And I'm like, since when was illegal immigrant a race? There's illegal immigrants of all races. It has nothing to do with it. Oh, you're a Nazi. No, I'm not trying to throw Catholics out of the country. I'm not trying to throw Jews out of the country. I'm trying to throw people that are here illegally, and most importantly, criminals and Islamists that want to kill us. Now, if you're okay with that, bring them in your home. Yeah, I didn't think so. And it's okay, and you can be woke until it affects you, until some illegal rapes your daughter, and then all of a sudden it's a problem, right? You were okay with it until somebody rapes your daughter or chops your wife's heads off after they get raped, Then it's all of a sudden you become a Republican and you want to get rid of them. So it shouldn't be a party thing at all. And I just don't understand the far left wing and how they can be all for this. And it's just promoting it, Ilhan Omar and all that. They want that. That's what they're here for. They put all those people here in certain little pockets, so just so they could get Ilhan Omar and representatives in the government to try to change our government from what we are to what they want it to be. And we can't allow that. So if I've offended somebody, I'm sorry. Defend yourself. I mean, just say something, speak up, and tell me why we should let Islamists in here that want to kill us. Why we should let criminally insane people in our country that want to kill us. I don't see any kind of logic that you have to stand on if that's what you want, because it's just not. And it's not about the Pedros and you know the Cynthias or whatever, that senoritas or whatever that want to come in here and that are nice people. That's not what the focus is at all. And we want them to come legally. Come here and learn the language as best you can, learn what our Constitution's all about, become a proud American, start paying taxes, and love to have you, no matter what nationality you are. But if you're Islam, no, there shouldn't be anybody of that religion. It's not a religion; it's a theocracy. So let's just let's just throw that being a religion out the door, because it's not. That's not a religion. It tolerates no other religion. It's a theocracy. It's their government. It's their governing body. So we don't allow. There's a separation of church and state, and for a good reason. So we don't allow any religion to run based on their religion, and that's what they do. So it's a theocracy. It's not a religion. It's a form of government, and we can't allow that form of government into our country because we already have a form of government. And if you don't understand, or we can come to the shit show. That's we'll talk about that kind of things. We don't have to talk about women and men's sports and abortion and all that controversial stuff between the parties. That's just fluff and bullshit, and that's what they want you to focus on. It's like a magician. They want you to focus on this hand while this other hand's doing something else, and the media keeps you focused on the fluff while this major shit's happening. And they tell you, oh, don't you be like a Nazi, or don't you be racist. And they use all these derogatory terms to try to make you feel bad. Don't feel bad, because we can't have that in our country. I'm sorry. Right. Yeah. How many countries, how many Islamic countries would allow a Presbyterian like me to come in and start saving people? And I mean, I can show you a video. I won't, but I can show you some videos of where they're interrogating people. Oh, why are you preaching Christianity here? And they just off you. I've got videos of a man. This was taken on the sidewalk. A man stops. It might have been CCTV or somebody with a camera. I don't know. But the dude stops on the sidewalk, literally gets his wife out of the car, slaps her around a few times, pulls out a fucking sword, beheads her at a four-way stop, leaves her there on the sidewalk, just puddle of blood, beheaded, and gets back in his car, wipes his blade on her, and then gets back in the car and drives away. And it shows it. And there's cops all around. They don't give a shit. It's not. It's not like anything we've seen or know. It's barbaric. It's not civilized. Thank you, James, for changing the subject. It is hard bending 22 millimeter copper. Um, Yeah. If you can find the coils, that works best. But or you could do the shotgun. Yeah, you could use those longer pipes and just make a shotgun condenser. Sure can. 45 liters. That's a little over 10 gallons, I guess. That's good. How many liters to a gallon? 4. So that's 10-gallon pot. Yep. 10-gallon drum. Yeah, I ain't getting off on that, man, but it just bothers me on a lot of levels, and there's people that disagree. I just don't understand how they can. And of course, they've never been affected by it. They've never had their friends' children or their children or people they know or old friends die from fentanyl. And how many of those you're going to lose before you start saying, well, we need to stop that? And there's even people, when we blow up those narco boats full of fentanyl that's going to kill our people, there's people, oh, I can't believe you shot down those innocent people. Innocent people. That's how naive some Americans are. They're so stupid, man. It's sad. It's sad and brainwashed. But let's get back to the topic. So other steels. So we've gone over like regular pot steels, and they're hybrid steels. Let's look at a good hybrid steel. Which is what we generally use with our columns. Excuse me. Well, damn, I thought that was not what I was looking for. But a hybrid steel, well, it looks more like I'm looking for one that's got a column on top of the pot, but a larger one to give you. No pictures. Yeah, I should have had all this already done, but I got busy. And Toots Beverages, this is a larger one probably. Yeah, kind of like the ones we were looking at, but I'm trying to find one that's got the column on top of the pot. A lot of these feed over to a column that's on the side, and it's because of height restrictions. Mine sits on top of mine pretty fine, but let's see. Oh, I guess if I images, I'll see. Damn it. Well, yeah, this is much better. But most of these are like a pot feeding into a column on the side. I'm looking for one that's got the column on top of the pot, which is what a lot of us do. And that's a different type of hybrid. Here we go. This is a good little picture one. Yeah. Actually, let me get that whole picture in there. Come on, where's my screenshot at? This is a good little picture of a hybrid. Now let me get that other screenshots into. All right, here we go. Now this is a good picture of a typical hybrid steel that we would use. And you see the column is on the top. So this is your basic boiler. And instead of feeding it continuously here and having just steam come up here and your mash come up here, all your mash and everything comes up here. Now you'll notice it's got a deflegmator right above it here. This is a deflegmator. And you can adjust the temperature of the water going into this deflegmator to focus your loading of your plates so you don't flood it and get too much in one area, and you can get a suitable amount on each plate, refluxing and working these bubble plates, and not only cleansing the alcohol of sulfites, but also stripping water, and heavier stuff. A lot of your, I don't know how she said congeners. I've always heard it pronounced congeners, so I don't know. Maybe it's just that Asian accent, but it sounded funny. But so you can regulate it. So more warm water going into here, less reflux, allows more through. Colder, more reflux, keeps more liquid on these. So if you don't have proper loading, you got too much, it's flooding. Increase your temperature here, allows more vapor through, and it won't flood as much. Yeah. But that's what our home distillers using a plate, and this is something that you would use to make like a vodka in a high proof. You could probably easily get, and depending on the temperature here, and this is how I regulate mine. So the colder this is, the more reflux, the higher the proof that's going to come out. And this right here could easily crank out 190 plus proof, no problem. And most of the plates that you'll see, let's see here, I think I got one, something like this. And you'll see it's got bubble scrubber plates here, and it's got little downcomers to let it, drain so it doesn't overload. And that's why you have the downcomers. If you get too much loading and it's not working for you, then you can take out a scrubber and put in an additional downcomer and let more drop. But you should be able to regulate it and get one of these to load up properly. Just about a third of this to bubble, and you'll see a lot of reflux coming down, these downcomers, and a couple of those, and yeah, you could produce some pretty high proof. And these get around $250. Buy these around $250 to $300. This is a 4-inch, and I would definitely recommend a 4. The 3s have a little bit fewer scrubbers. The 4s are really good size. If you've got 20 gallons plus, yeah, you definitely want to get a 4 or a couple of them, and you could definitely crank out some high proof vodka for sure. What's going on, Ham Bone? What's up, man? Pack column, right, yeah. You can, pack your column with a bunch of the copper, mesh, and get that same, you get equilibrium, and it'll all kind of focus in one certain area of the column. If you don't have plates, you got your deflegmator up there, and most of your liquid will just dance in one particular area. And you can put sight glasses in there too, and pack each sight glass and kind of keep them focused on that, and keep them on that sight glass and let it work. But yeah, these work real well. I'm getting ready to get some of these. Feel able to get them. And if you're going to get them quick, because with the way the trade wars and shit are going, a lot of this stuff has the potential to go up a little bit in price, but they'll come back down. But for the next 6 months, they may go up a little bit. So if you plan on doing something, might be a good time to do it between now and Christmas, because got to do it. It's best. It's best for the country, It'll all work out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like on mine, I mean, I can dial my deflegmator. I can come out with it going over my column. Now without it, I can go from about 120 to 180 plus. Never really gotten that cold of water going into it to try to force it any lower. I think 187 was the highest I got, and I could have gotten in the 190s if I just, dropped another jug of ice in my supply line, but in the supply um, reservoir. But yeah, you can lightly pack it and tune your deflegmator to where you get less reflux and more flavor. Yep. 32-liter, 8-gallon. One of these would be plenty. Yeah, one of these in an 8-gallon would be plenty. Maybe overkill. In an 8, you could probably get rid of a. Yeah, yeah, I would say even maybe a 3 for an 8-gallon would be sufficient, unless you just wanted really really high proof vodka. But a 3, and like we were talking, you can pack some of it with the mesh that's not open like this, and use your deflegmator, and yeah, you can make it just about any proof you want just with that deflegmator by adjusting it. You can get as much or as little reflux as you want. It's the bomb. Yeah, Jonathan B, I've heard a lot about those cryptos. I was always skeptical about cryptos in the beginning, and before the blockchain and all that came out, I was really skeptical about them because there's really nothing backing them. It's just the desire for someone else has to buy it, and as price goes up, they're still buying it. I just, there's nothing backing them. Like a lot of stocks have a company, and goods and stuff, and it's just I never really put a lot of faith in it. I wish I had them now, because I remember, when I was around when they first came out, and I mean, people were buying pizzas and shit with bitcoins and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's crazy. What did I do wrong? My liquor started at just 100 proof. Feel like it should be higher. Um, well, what did you get a hydrometer reading on how much ABV your mash was to start with? A lot of times it's either you had a low ABV in your mash, or your setup may either A, have a leak, or um, or it may just be set up to where it just produces low wines, like what this lady was talking about in the video. And if that's the case, when it happens, you just have to do a second run. Now you can add a thumper to get your proof up, or you could add a column with some reflux and get it up, or you could simply add a deflegmator and pack a little column with some copper mesh, and that would work just as well. So there's lots of ways we can get your proof up, but most importantly, how did it taste? Because 100 proof is a decent proof. And if it's coming off at 100 and it tastes real good, then I'd call that a success if you got enough of it. But we'd really have to narrow it down to, did you have a low ABV going into it? And that can certainly have an impact, no matter what still, and unless you're going to do a lot of reflux. So if you're just running pot still straight to the worm, um, yeah, you can definitely improve on it, with a column or something else. But how was the flavor? And do you know what your ABV was? Did you get a starting and ending gravity on your mash or your wash? Nah, they're not hard to keep cleaned off. No, you don't rinse them out after each use, rinse them out, and they'll be fine. Um, the problem a lot of people have is they get lazy and they let that shit sit on there for a long time, or they don't clean their pot out, especially like copper pots. They let that back set sit in there for a day or two, cooling off, and they don't get it out and rinse it out, clean it out because it's highly acidic. It's like got a pH of 3, and it starts to work on that copper at that low of a pH, and it starts to eat away at it. So you just got to be, if you're using copper, you got to be pretty, religious about cleaning and rinsing. And of course, with that glass and stuff, you got to let it cool. You don't want to be rinsing it when it's hot. But yeah, that's cool. Sitting at 90. Well, I mean, what's the flavor like? And it's fine. First run, it's, you're just getting used to the process. So next time, just take that ABV reading before you pitch that yeast and jot it down and try to get it about 1070 if it's a grain, 1080 if you're using brandy and sugar and fruit and sugars and stuff, and you should get a little bit higher alcohol content coming off. But most importantly is, how's it tasting? It's the biggie. And yeah, like Clint's saying, if you run it fast, you're actually pushing more water through with it. A higher temperature is going to push more water through with it. So you're probably getting a little bit more water and consequently lowering the proof. But the flavor, it should be, pretty good flavor as well. So yeah. I wouldn't do bubble column into a thumper. That's kind of, I mean, I guess you could. It if especially if you were trying to use a column to get high proof, but then going into a thumper for flavor infusion. Now, if you had your thumper full of some kind of flavor infusion or some kind of gin, botanicals or something like that you're trying to incorporate into it, I'd say that'd be fine. Okay, 1 pound of sugar per gallon of water will give you about a 1040. So that was probably part of the problem. Um, you want to use about 1.5 to 2 pounds of sugar per gallon of water just for plain old sugar mash. How's it going, Brandon? So just like a sugar wash, 2 pounds of sugar, 1 gallon of water, I think gets you 1080 and change. So, and 1 pound will get you 1040. A lot of people do 1040 if they've got like some grain that they're going to try to convert, but not a lot, and or something like that. But yeah, you probably started out with a little bit low. So next time use 2 pounds per gallon, you'll get a 1080, but you'll get a hot liquor. Whereas, with 1 pound, it's not going to be quite as hot. But yeah, you could just run it slower and go by the drip. Yeah. Yeah, if you do the beginning and the end, you can subtract the two and know exactly what percent of alcohol, or close, roughly what percent of alcohol that you're going to have. Yeah, definitely need more sugar. But first time, so maybe next time we can, try something a little different. You can add a little more sugar and do it, stronger sugar shine and get a little higher proof coming off, and And next time, throw in some cornmeal. Go about 1.5 pounds or 2 pounds of sugar, a gallon of water, and a pound of cornmeal for every gallon, and get you a little corn flavor, mixed in with that. But make sure that you clear it and rack it before you siphon it off into the tank. You don't want to put all that cornmeal in your boiler. Right, I understand, and it's going to be hot. Yeah, any sugar shine like that, and it's going to be hot. It's going to have some off flavors because it does stress the yeast. Going to need a little bit of nutrients in there to keep them happy, and you're going to need some of those oyster shells we talk about to help um, keep your wash from crashing. But we're going to get you out of the sugar shine. We do sugar shine just to get people's feet wet, to let them run it, kind of clean their stills with it, get used to the operation of the still, how, you did use 10 pounds cracked corn, then that's good. It should have some good flavors then. So that's good. Yeah. So we generally do the sugar shine though to just get people's feet wet, learn their still, learn temperatures, learn the drip, learn how long it takes to do this, that, to search for leaks in the steel. If it's new, first time you've ever used it, you're looking for leaks. Sometimes those tri clamps don't get tightened down enough. Sometimes if it's paste, you're not paste them properly. It all depends on the setup, but it gets you familiar with the setup, and it helps clean it. And it's definitely not the best. It's always going to be hot. It's just, you know, it's just the way it is. Yeah, you can use inverted sugar, or you can use uh, glucose or dextrose, and corn sugar. You can use high fructose corn syrup. A lot of those will be a little less hot than just pure sucrose, which is a table sugar, which is a combination of glucose and fructose. So they can get pretty hot, but it's good for first time, and it's also good if you just don't have anything else on hand and you just want to make some fucking liquor. You got a few days to let it ferment. It ferments really fast, and in less than 5 days you can have you some high proof shit coming off. And to be honest, if you take that sugar shine and you run it over a column, and you get it real high proof, and you mix it with some juices and other stuff that have strong flavors, you know it's not as bad. It's still going to be hot and there's still going to be a burn, but when you tell people it's moonshine, they'll be, I expected that burn. Yeah, because they associate that with moonshine, which, is because a lot of it in the past made with, a lot of sugar and just cornmeal. Called a thin mash. There's nothing wrong with it. Well, that bubbling, if you've got a leak, that will certainly lower your proof because you're getting what you see, getting all of it. There's a lot of it that's invisible steam that you don't even see. And yeah, you could be losing a little bit to that too. But that's what friends are for. Get your feet wet and see. And sometimes those tri clamps, now you may take it apart and look at that gasket, and there may be some nicks or something in it that's causing it not to seal real well. You may not just had it tightened up enough. Sometimes there's, the spools are a little bit bent or something like that causing it. So, you have to investigate and see what's causing it. And it's great for a first run. That's all a learning experience from the day one till the day you die. You'll always be learning something every time you run, and something always different happens that you have to troubleshoot and deal with. But, you know, absolutely, corn sugar is better to use than just straight sugar for sure. And even better is blue agave. Or, well, dextrose is kind of expensive to run, but I know people run all dextrose and just make some pretty decent sugar shine with it. And if you just want a cheap drink and you don't have nothing else, it's, well, not real cheap, but um, right. So you got a little drippage there too. Well, I guess you got some compression fittings on there. So I'm seeing, you got mixed tri-clamps and compression fittings. And that's common. I would try to replace those with tri-clamps. And you can get PTFE gaskets for your tri-clamps too, and just instead of silicone. It's a harder plastic. It's PTFE. It's Teflon. Yeah. And they do real well. That's all mine are. I get a lot of stuff that had silicone. That silicone's fine to use, but it wears out over time. And yeah, I like that hard plastic PTFE. Those are good gaskets. A little bit more expensive, but they don't break down ever. You can nick them, break them, bend them, but the alcohol and the ethyl acetates and acetone won't break it down, whereas acetone and ethyl acetate will slowly but surely break down silicone little by little. Awesome. Barley wine. Yeah, I'm looking for a good barley dealer. I've got a good corn dealer and I got a good wheat dealer, corn farmer and a wheat farmer. But I have to get my corn at a certain time, and I can't always just stockpile the shit out of it like some of us can. So I have to buy it bag at a time and put it in these barrels and store it. But I'm gonna definitely start after I get done with this apple. I'm definitely gonna focus on doing some grains. I gotta get some barrels filled up. Yeah, biscuit dough works well. They also have like a silicone tape, and it's fine to use. It you just wrap it and it kind of sticks to itself and then peels off, kind of like, I don't know what they call that stuff. I don't know. Anyway, it's just like tape, comes in like foot sections, and you can just wrap that on. And you have to wear gloves because it's hot as fuck. But you have to just wrap it and wrap it and wrap it and wrap it all the way around, and it'll self stick, not hard. But and it sometimes will help seal some of those slow leaks. If not, like Clint said, you can use some biscuit dough on there, or if you got some rye dough, you can. The rye dough does real well, but it's hard as fuck, and you have to soak it and scrub it to get it off. The drip. What size did you say your steel was? I don't know if you said, but the drip will depend on your steel. It's like those big ones we saw pouring out, man. It's like pouring out through a garden hose, man. It's even bigger. It was pouring out of there, man, like a gutter. 10-gallon, you should just be a real fast drip, almost into a trickle. And if it goes fast drip trickle, that's okay. Fast drip trickle. But if you go to your sink in your bathroom and you turn your water on just as slowly as you can to where it drip, 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 right to where it gets to the finest little stream, and then back it off just a tad where it drips, stream, something right in there, or just the finest stream for stripping and dripping for a finished run should be pretty good. But as your steel gets bigger, you can come off a little faster. I'll have to check them out. I don't care if it's organic or not. Is it malted? Oh, you're talking about the Teflon loop in it? Yeah. I mean, and thing about compression fittings, like what you're using, you basically got a piece of metal that's going into another piece of metal, and it's like round, and it makes a small groove when it fits in. And these fittings aren't really designed to be taken off, put on, taken off, put on, taken off, put on multiple times. Now they will come off when you have to put in the water heater and then put it back on, and you can get by with that a couple times. But when you use it on a steel, it's coming off and on a lot, right? So you start getting cuts into that metal, that circle cut, and they start overlapping each other, making X's and stuff, and then they just start leaking, and then it's Now, what you can do is very lightly with the finest grit sandpaper you can get, kind of etch some of those grooves out of the receiving end of that and eliminate some of that. But you can only do that once or twice, and you just got to replace the union. They're not real expensive. But oh, I'm sorry, Ham. What's happening is that you won't see the, well, let's see. There is an option on here, I think, that, I don't know, they may have taken it back off because it didn't. Okay. Now, see, I just added that on stage. Most people can't see that, but there's a lot of people on YouTube that are asking questions too, and you can only see people in Facebook that's asking questions, and maybe within the group that you're watching. So we do this on Facebook, YouTube. We've got Rumble, we've got Kick, we got Twitch. I'm not streaming those right now because we got to redo them because they change over time. The keys change, so we have to keep up with them. And I just didn't want to fool with it tonight. We don't get a lot of viewers from there anyway. All our viewers are Facebook and YouTube. Probably YouTube is where most of them are. I get on any podcast, I'll get 300 to 500 viewers, not the live. The live, I'll probably get about 30 to start out with, 40, and then like now we got like 12 on Facebook watching. But a lot of people watch it like at work. And while, on the way to work, they'll listen to it, so they can listen to it. And, yeah, I can put them there. A lot of people can't see it. If you're on a PC, you can see that. I've already talked to StreamYard about increasing the size of this just to take up this whole left side and maybe making it a little larger. They haven't done that yet, so hopefully they'll listen to feedback. I'll probably give it again tonight, but I should remember to do that so you can see them, the questions that were answered. But I try to kind of give a gist about what questions being answered. And I understand, a lot of people have the same questions, like, you can only see the YouTube. But hopefully we can make it bigger so everybody can see that. And I forgot to enable that. A lot of people don't like it. I like it. But if you're on a phone, you can't see it. But on my PC, I got a 32-inch monitor, so I can read it. I can read it okay. I don't. I've malted wheat and I've malted corn, but I've never bought just plain barley and malted it. I've always just bought the malted because it wasn't that much more, and that's what's pretty much available. I'm really looking for a farmer that has it. I would malt it on my own if I had to. That's right. And it might be depending on what YouTube channel. So if you watch it from Fieldbillies, you'll only see the questions from Fieldbillies on YouTube. And if you watch it from the Militia YouTube page, you'll only see the Militia questions. So yeah, well, we're going to talk to StreamYards and see if we can get an option where we can increase these comments, because I think it's critical that everybody sees all the comments and questions. So I will definitely put in a note of that this evening, and basically right now when I get logged off here. It's about 11, so we're going to try to wrap it up. Yeah, I got a wheat one, but nobody around here grows barley. Well, I can't say people around here that grow barley grow it for big distillers. Here in Kentucky, they're growing it for all the big guys, and that's the only really the biggest use for barley here. There's just not a lot of barley production for anything else. So they don't just sell to anybody. Their whole allotment every year they do 100 acres of barley. It all goes to Heaven Hill or another distillery here in Kentucky, and that's a surefire way for them to earn their money. They make damn good money making it, growing it, and they dedicate it all to a distillery or another. But yeah, I'd like to find me a farmer close by that's Yeah, wheat is easy to malt. Yeah. Yeah, I malt the wheat and I malted corn before. You won't see me malting corn anymore though. It's just with the enzymes the way they are. Um, and I may just start getting 6-row, or I'm sorry, 2-row barley that's not even malted. Now that I've got exogenous enzymes, with liquid high temp and the other, I know the flavor though, there is some flavor differences, and but you get that 2-row and you can start getting some good specialty barleys that they add a lot of flavor, sometimes too much. So yeah, it's hard to find barley, good malted barley. I mean, you can get on Amazon. It's not hard to find if you want to pay for it. $2.50 a pound or some shit on Amazon. Let's see what their price is right now on it. Let me go here. Let's see how many pounds is that. 10 pounds for $24.99. $2.50 a pound. 15 for a pound of that. Man, they proud of that. That's a bit much. 15 a pound. Come on. I'm not going to say who does that because they're part of the community, but that's crazy. They said got a bit on here. Yeah, here's what I get. It's this 26 for 10 pound. So it's generally $2.50 a pound. Sometimes I can get it around 2. Yeah, no, they don't. Sometimes I can get it around 2. But yeah, getting expensive. That's for sure. But there's a couple on here still selling it for that. So I probably need to get some more before they start jacking that shit up. I'm glad they're still cheap. Let's see, who is that? Brewers Malt for home brewing, whole grain. My Brew Supply. Distillers 2-row. Yeah, those are pretty decent deals there. But yeah, definitely I order some right now as I speak. That looks good. Homebrew, Ohio. Let's see if that's old Fieldbilly. Sandusky. I guess not. They got a pretty good deal. 10 pounds for $2.50. Fieldbilly's got some. And if you can get there without having to pay shipping, you can get really good deals off Fieldbilly. But with the shipping 80 pounds barley ain't cheap. You have to get a bunch to last me. Get a little discount, buy it, bulk. So you're going to go with spirals. Tell you, spirals are great, but they're a little bit expensive. But if you can find these barrel staves and just kind of sand the gray side and just char it all the way around and cut them into, little sections that'll fit in your jar, man, they'll give it some good color and char in no time. Now it's not going to be anything like a barrel, and neither's a spiral, and neither's the sawdust beard they have. I don't even know why in the world people do that. They've got this. They call it shiner's beard, and it's basically shaved wood that's been smoked a little bit, charred. Let's see what's the. It's not the charring process, but the just the seasoning. So they darken it in an oven, and trying to think of the term. It's not the char though, but you can char that. But anyway, they drop this miner's beard, and I mean, you drop it in, it's like strands of sawdust, and it immediately starts coloring up, and it's just, that's going to be some bitter ass tannins in that. Yeah, I'm going to talk to him at least a quarter of the screen over here to the right side. I mean, maybe a little smaller than my picture, but from top to bottom, just from like the numbers down to the bottom, maybe just like what they've got, but go higher and maybe a little wider so you can get a little larger print. Absolutely. And I'm definitely going to send in that request. Yeah, let me see. Yeah. Toasting. That's what the word I was looking for. Toasting in char. So you can toast this miner's beer is what they do. And then put a light char on it and then drop it in there. And it just colors up instantly. And it's just horrible. You know that's going to taste like pure tannins. It's going to be bitter. But it's gives some flavor to the clear. It's not as good as like a barrel. But yeah, toasted shavings. It's horrible. What's going on, Guppy? Hey, gone. You got here just as we was about to get out of here. But after we shut down the stream, you can go back and watch it from the very beginning. And absolutely, go ahead, brother. Yeah, we can hang out. Yeah, roasted, toasted. Yeah, that's what I was trying to come up with. Man, I'm getting old. Sometimes it's tough, man. I find looking for the right word. Hell, the other day, what was it? Funnel, and that was a few months ago. And then a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember. I was having trouble coming up. Oh, carbonated beverage, carbonated. I kept sucking. Man, my mind is going. I use champagne yeast all the time, brother. And in fact, yeah, 18 to 20. Now, EC 1118, which is a Saccharomyces cerevisiae bayanus, that's a champagne yeast. I use that, and I also use a Red Star Premier Rouge, or I'm trying Premier Blanc, and that's another champagne yeast, or a white wine and champagne yeast. But yeah, I love using champagne yeast, especially the 1118, which is probably, if you're gonna just buy one yeast to use for everything, that's the one you want to get. If you're, once you get more into advanced distilling, and you'll learn about how each yeast gives each mash or must or wash a unique flavor and character, you'll start deviating and using different yeasts. EC 1118 is not the best at anything, but it's damn good at most everything. So that's why if you're just going to buy one, that would be the one. Right. So you're just making applejack or jacking. It's what they call jacking, freeze distillation. And then bring it up to 178. What's it? So what proof are you getting to at 178? I mean, what proof are you using? Let me pull up the chart here and I'll show you what happens at 178. At 178 degrees, I'm gonna have to move that out of the way so I can see my chart. But at 178 degrees, you're just under 180. So you're gonna have about 100 proof jack for anything to happen and to distill that off. So at 160, you couldn't get anything to come off. You're not going to get anything to come off at 160 or 140. Heating it up like that will kill off any bacteria or anything like that. If you're worried about it, it'll pasteurize it. But if you look at this chart here, the bottom line is volume percentage, not proof. So 80 is 160. So at once, now are you talking about temperature, I guess, or proof? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So sorry. Wow. Freeze distillation, you were getting that high proof. That's hard to do, jacking, to get that much water to freeze off. But that's basically, we call that jacking. And the problem with that is you got heads and foreshots still in there when you jack it like that. And man, I mean, it may have great flavor, but just don't drink a lot of it because it's going to give you a bad headache and hangover the next day because it's still got a lot of that the heads, and it's got all the heads and foreshots still in there because you've distilled nothing off. But yeah, you can. But bringing it up to 178 at 160, that would be, yeah, you can get some action, but it's kind of dangerous distilling anything over 80 proof, which is 40 on this chart, which gets you about 182 temperature wise. So you want to be really careful about that because it can, especially when you heat it up, you definitely don't want to get your temperature above that 178. That was probably a good thing that you did it at 178 at that high of a proof. Because if you normally we distill over here where it's 1020, right? And we're 190 and change, right? So most of it's 195, 196 that we start at, and we go on up as the alcohol comes off and there's more water concentration in the pot. But it's dangerous to distill that high proof. Okay, now after you freeze distill it, you run it through a copper pot. Right, so if you freeze distill, oh, wait. Okay, so, right, I understand. So what's your whole purpose in freeze distilling is, let's start there. Most people, first of all, if it dies off at 18%, so you got 18 to 20% there. Now, why not just distill that in your pot at 190 plus and have that come off? What's the whole purpose in jacking and just removing the water that way? You can distill it off just as easy. I mean, you may have a purpose, and you may find you get better flavor doing that. I'm not knocking it. I've just never done it like that. So I'm trying to figure out that what you're trying to accomplish and what results you've gotten. Yeah. So what you don't try to do that because a lot of that water that you're pulling off has a lot of flavor in it. So distill the water off. That's the whole purpose of distilling is you're going to remove a lot of the water as you're distilling it. So next time, just try, instead of freeze, jacket. I guess you're in an area where you can freeze it or you got access to a cold freezer. But next time, just try to do your mash and 18, 20%, just put it in your pot and run it and you should, depend on what kind of steel you got. Is it like a Bever or keg steel or milk stainless milk pot, or I mean, what kind of steel you running? I think you did say copper pot. So if you're running just a plain pot steel, and do you have a thumper? Do you have a thumper or any kind of infusers, jar rigs, or anything like that, or just no thump? Well, it's fine, but just next time, try running it just without jacking it. Just it'll be safer, first of all, and that's what I want to make sure is I'm not sure what proof it's going into your pot, but just run it straight off the pot into your condenser, and you should probably, on a decent copper pot still, you should be getting 130, 130, 140 coming off there. So that should be plenty, and plenty alcohol wise, and with that water that you're trying to get rid of, a lot of that water carries flavor. So um, when you get that 130 proof, 140 proof, you're getting the remainder, of course, is water. So just give it a try and see if that gets more flavor, and if not, maybe jacking and distilling after it's jacked is a viable thing to do. I've never tried to do it. I'm not saying you're doing it wrong at all, but if you're not getting a decent proof come off, I would try to do it that way instead. The best is probably going to be electric element going into it. Propane probably second, but I use a glass top stove. Now, does your glass stove, when it's on high or right next to high, does it cycle on and off, or does it just stay lit? Because if it just stays lit and it doesn't cycle on high, then it should be pretty good to run on. I run on a stove all the time, but mine doesn't cycle on and off and thermostatically kick on and off. It just stays that one on high. It stays high, and the high is like 9 on mine. I go down to 8, and it still stays on. It doesn't cut on and off. So if that's the case, you should be fine. If not, then I would probably go with propane until you can work. Now they put a 2-inch sanitary fitting on the lower side of your steel going into it. You can use like a water heater element, similar to a water heater element, but it's stainless, and you can go electric like that. Most people that have gone electric really love the convenience of it, but does cycle a little bit. Next time, watch it and pay attention to it. And if it doesn't cycle, then you should be pretty good to go. If it cycles on and off a lot, yeah, not good. But mine, I only got no Frigidaire with a smooth top, and it doesn't cycle at all, and it does just fine. Yeah, this is an old one. Yeah, I mean, I've made some Applejack before, and I've jacked before to just fortifying your wine is basically all you're doing when you jack it like that. You're just increasing the strength of the wine, but you're taking some flavor out of the wine as well. And yeah, yeah, it's that's what I'm hearing too. I'm gonna go electric as well. That way, I can either do it on the stove, or I can do it in the laundry room with the electric, or sometimes outside I'll do propane. Wish I could just have natural gas plumbed to it, because that's pretty cheap. But electric is really the cheapest way to go. Some people bring it up to temp quicker. I would say it depends on what you got going into it. Um, if it's kind of milky and it has a lot of particulates, you're going to want to keep it agitated as you bring it up. So, faster may be better to get it up there while you're agitating it. And that way, when it starts rolling, you don't have to worry about it as much. But once you start your drip, you can cut back your temperature to regulate your drip the way you want your drip. But mine, when I've done it on the stove in the wintertime, I go 8, 9, and it's got like an infrared. It's not got like the coils on the top. It's glass, and it's not conduction. It's infrared type, and that little red stays on. So it does fine. Yeah, the initial cost of the equipment, yeah, it's a little bit more than a turkey fryer or some burner. Um, but in the long run, yeah, it'll save you a lot. Trying to make your own liquor, how you start. Well, you got to figure out. I'd say a good start would, for most beginners, would be to buy one of them little favorite football steals off eBay or Facebook, or not Facebook, eBay or Amazon. 13 or 18 and a half. I like the 18 and a half. It does fine. Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't thinking about Clint not being able to see all the questions, to answer all the questions. Damn, I thought you could see them all. I wasn't even thinking about it. But yeah, I'm going to talk to StreamYards about that and at least give us the option to where I can enlarge that if I want to, and make it bigger. And let me look and see if they maybe have the option for that already. Not there. New layout. Nope. Manage layouts. Nope. Yeah, I'm going to talk to him at the end of this. Nice. Olympic. Probably an Olympic. That sounds nice. Those are nice. Yeah, yeah. It certainly will for Clint and for those in the comments. Yeah, it's good to see them all. Definitely beneficial. That's cool. Yeah, you don't have to. Your coolant doesn't have to be that cold if you can maintain, a 65 to 75-degree temperature in your condenser flake or barrel bucket, whatever you're using. Yeah, that'd be fine. You don't need it ice cold. In fact, it's better if it's not. Yeah, if we don't, if you answer something really complex, and we can't answer it. We'll find an answer. I know enough reliable sources that I can either search online or I can ask distillers, that are very scientific, and understand, all the nuances. So, but there's not many questions that you're going to get by Clint and I that we won't be able to answer for you. It'd have to be pretty complex. I mean, we'd better be talking about molecules and chemical formulas and conversions and stuff. It might get a little bit above me, but yeah, it'd be tough. All right, y'all. Well, we went to about 11:30 again this Saturday. We did last time. Awesome. Appreciate it. Now, every Friday there might be a show come on called the Shit Show, Guppy, and if it is, it gets a little crazy. And there's sometimes there can be some drama in there and some cutting up, some jokes, dirty jokes, and talk politics with that. Lord, they talk about anything and everything in there, you know. But it's just for fun, getting drunk and sitting around talking. But in here, we do this on Wednesdays and Saturdays and 8 Eastern time. And we try to we'll go to 10 if we're getting a lot of participation, a lot of questions and stuff. And I'm feeling good and Clint's, feeling good. We'll stick around to 11, sometimes 11:30. We, I enjoy helping. We both love helping people and getting them going. We want to make it an enjoyable hobby for everybody. And if you're on Facebook, look us up. Might want to write this down. DIY Shine and Stuff. And we may be changing that to DIY Shine and outdoor living or survival or something, because I want to try to start getting people into canning and learning about tinctures and learning about herbs and herbal remedies, because I want to learn about that too. So that's something we could all learn together. So I won't be able to answer a lot of questions, but we can all ask the same questions and we can find the answers, right? And it'll be a lot of fun to learn together. But y'all write down. Yeah. Yeah, it does get a little bit hairy, but on this show we keep it pretty much to the point. Every once in a while I'll get a little wild hair. Somebody mentions something about some politics somewhere, and really I don't like to get political, but when it comes to, security and safety, I'll talk about that. I try not to, but sometimes I just can't help myself. But yeah, some people love it. It actually we probably get more people watching that than all the other Friday shows. But we found that most people want to learn. Most people are on here to ask questions and learn. They like the education. So, this is probably one of the most popular, for sure, one of the most popular channels. We get a lot more viewers than a lot of the other ones, because and not because of me or Clint. It's just, people just want to learn, and it's a good, mellow place. You can learn. We can talk on a, even keel. But yeah, it's named Shit Show for a reason. All right, brother. Yeah, we can talk more about steel stuff, and that's something. It's well, I can actually give you links. Now, this is for the Moonshine Militia. So if you click on that one, you will find the Moonshine Militia. And if you click on this one, you will get the DIY shining stuff. And I'm an admin in both, so I can field questions. Hopefully soon Clint will be an admin in the DIY page as well. So in fact, I might just make it happen right now. Let's see here. Clint Torres. Damn. All of a sudden now I can invite you as a moderator. I don't know what they did to change it, but they fixed their shit. So now, Clint, accept that, and let me also I can make you a group expert after that. But there, accept it, Clint, and you will be now a moderator. I don't know what in the hell, it just changed. Than never before was I able to do that until today. Awesome. Facebook fixing their shit. Yep. So I will add, once you're in as moderator, I can add you as a group expert as well. All right, y'all. Thanks for dropping in. Thanks for tuning in. I love your questions. Had some great questions tonight. And we got to enjoy a couple of videos. If y'all like that, comment. Let me know. If you want more, we can start looking up some more informational videos. I like the illustrations. That's why I have a lot of graphs and a lot of pictures, and I like having that. And if we can do video, add a little instructional video to it as well, it helps. For me, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and to look at it kind of self-explains a lot for me, that somebody could sit and talk to their blue in the face and I wouldn't know what the hell they're talking about. So we'll try to do a little bit more of that, mixed up a little bit. And until Wednesday, everybody have a great weekend and get smashed in. Get them apples smashed in. They're cheap right now. But we'll see y'all Wednesday. Peace out. Love y'all. Shine on, everybody. Take care.